My entitled parents literally won't stop having kids, as they've literally put me in a position where I'm like a third parent in the house, even going as far as like forcing me to drop out of high school just to raise their kids for them. But now that I'm finally moved out, my mom is pregnant again with child number 11, and I'm seriously not surprised that they're begging me to move back in and help them raise this kid, putting me in a situation that I think is absolutely ridiculous because right now I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's currently going on. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk and hit the bell to turn on notifications. I'm a 20-year-old male, and I've got to say, I really feel bad saying this, but I deeply resent my parents having so many kids. For starters, my dad's 38 years old and he works, and my mom, who's also 38, has never had a job and went from training to be a good wife all the way to marrying my dad at 18. My parents are deeply religious. They come from religious families, and birth control or trying to like control the size of the family is just not allowed. Even if there's a medical risk, which there have been, you just keep on going according to them. I mean, that's what their church promotes at least. My parents and grandparents grew up going to that church, and my siblings and I, as I'm the oldest, grew up there too. But I formally left that church when I turned 18. I mean, I never really bought into their teachings anyways. My dad doesn't make the kind of money required to raise a family with more than 10 children. And I don't think my mom really enjoys being a mother, so the responsibility for my siblings was pawned off to me most of the time. In fact, there would be harsh punishments when I refused, and my dad would like make sure I didn't become too effeminate because of my responsibilities to my siblings. My dad also put his foot down saying, "Oh, you're the only boy that could be asked to help out," even though the 5 kids after me are also boys, which just doesn't make any sense. It was a really big fight in the house because my dad really hated me stepping in because in his eyes it wasn't very manly, but he also realized my mom was not holding the reins tight enough. My siblings and I all developed issues from the type of childhood that we have, and to be honest, putting the responsibility on me has made me resentful of my parents and my siblings. I mean, I don't even have one single sibling I had a close relationship with. Plus, I moved out at 18 and I refuse to provide any more help, which my oldest sister won't do either. My dad has come around now that nobody is really raising my siblings, and he calls with mom to tell me to come home and help, and they tell me that I'm needed to keep the family running. They also mess with my education by putting so much on my shoulders, and I even dropped out of high school my junior year with my parents' full support. My grades were awful and I had zero hope of improving them myself. Well, fast forward and my mom's pregnant again, and they have increased their efforts to get me back home to help out all over again. Even some of my siblings have joined in because I was the only one that did stuff for them. And sure, I feel guilty for this, but I also don't want to. Like, I don't want to do this at all. I don't even want a relationship with any of my family. It doesn't bring me anything good, and it just risks me being stuck back in the cycle of helping, which is mostly just being the only parent in the house outside of discipline. So please, I need some advice. I'm not in a position for any kind of therapy right now, and I'm not looking to go back to school right now either. I'm close to moving to another town, but it will still take a couple of years or more for me to be on my feet better than I am right now. But I want to know what I should do about my family, which is why I'm looking for relationship advice. What should I do? Oh my gosh, dude, I will never understand why people have children they can't take care of. Are you kidding me? You had 10 kids? The mom probably was like, okay, I'm done after 2. Meanwhile, the both of them are sitting there like, oh, but we gotta make babies. This is what our church expects. And I don't know about you, but if your church expects you to have a bunch of kids without like being willing to take care of them, then you're just a terrible person in my opinion. Like, there's no good excuse for this. So bro, if I was in your shoes, I would never move back in with them. You know what's waiting for you. You're just gonna become another parent for this family. You're gonna be the only one getting things done, no one else is going to step up, and somehow it's going to fall on your shoulders once again. So you just need to ask yourself, do I really want to put up with this again? Because I'm willing to bet that you don't. Like, it really sounds like you want to move away from this crap and move on with your life. And honestly, if I were you, I would feel the exact same way. Okay, before we go any further, I need to highlight a comment that made me like foam at the mouth. I was so happy because this is like the sweetest thing ever. Stingy Puppy literally says like they're watching these videos all the time. They're watching and listening while they're working, and they literally clean operation rooms in a hospital. And listening to these stories help them get through their shift. And dude, I want to cry. I want to hug you without making it weird. That's so sweet. Like, legitimately, thank you so much for watching, Stingy Puppy. We love and appreciate you so much. I am so glad that these videos can help you get through the workday because, dude, I get it. Like, you're working in a very stressful environment. You need to make sure those rooms are clean for the next patient, dude. That is not easy. That's a very technical skill. Like, I am blown away. I don't even know what to say right now. I'm like overjoyed right now. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you to everybody who's watching, dude. We love and appreciate you guys so much. So please, if you got stories you want to share, first off, leave a comment, dude. I love reading your comments, guys. You guys are like killing it right now because your insights are so particular and so specific, and it's just so fun to see your take on things, because sometimes you guys disagree with me, and that's totally fine. Like, I want to hear your rationale behind it. But other times you expound on what I've said in a way where it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's actually a way better point than what I said. Oh my gosh. So please leave a comment, but also submit your own stories at amithejerk.com/submit. We want to hear them. I want to read them, dude. I want to feature them. So yeah, dude, I appreciate all of you guys so much. Subscribe if you haven't already. And honestly, without further ado, let's jump back into the video and on to the next story. My girlfriend's best friend wants to stay with us for a week at a rented lake house we rented for about a month and a half. But after I said no to this and suggested like she only stay for a few days, my girlfriend got upset with me and said that I'm being unreasonable and unfair, which honestly makes me wonder if I'm the jerk in this situation because I'm just not sure what to make of this. Here's what's currently going on. Okay, so my girlfriend and I rented a lake for about a month and a half, and this place is expensive and I'm paying for a large share of the cost. I'm also an entrepreneur, so I'm still working long days while we're here. One of the main reasons we rented this place was so I could work and actually have some peace and quiet afterwards. Well, tonight my girlfriend's friend called asking if she could stay with us for a week because apparently this lady is stressed after moving in with her boyfriend and sister and just wants to come to relax. Now, when she said I want to stay for a week, I was not comfortable with that, but instead I suggested like maybe 3 days max. Now, here's my reasonings. For one, it's our vacation and it's not a free Airbnb. Also, I need my space after work and we only have one car, and she would need us to do like a 2-hour trip to pick her up and bring her home, which would be about 8 hours in total of driving. Also, there's some history here. Her friend is nice enough, but she's very opinionated about some issues. I've made comments in my own house that my girlfriend later mentioned to her, and it ended up creating tension between my girlfriend and I because she strongly disagreed. She also tends to complain a lot, so I am not excited about living together for a week. What makes this feel very inconsistent is that when I wanted my brother or cousin to visit for a couple of days just to hang out, my girlfriend was hesitant because there wasn't a special reason. And you know what? I respected that. So I don't really think it's unreasonable to say no to a week-long stay from one of her friends. I wasn't saying that she couldn't come at all. I just thought that a week was way too long, and I offered the 2 to 3 days as like a compromise. But my girlfriend thinks I'm being selfish because her friend needs a break. So am I the jerk here? Like, really? Did I make any kind of like bad call in this situation? What should I do here? Because this feels really weird. Okay, anyone else get really pissed off at that last line? Because holy crap. Yeah, your friend needs a break, but it shouldn't be on my dime. Like, holy crap, dude. I'm not gonna do 8 hours of driving in total just to get you here, all because, oh, you need a break. Like, no, I'm not doing that. First off, if you are coming here, you're gonna get here on your own dime because there's no reason for me to go out of my way to pick you up. That's weird. And also, you're not staying here more than 3 days. Like, if you're staying here a week, congratulations, you're gonna help pay for part of this Airbnb. Like, I don't think so. So no, you're not the jerk here. It seems like everybody wants to like make this into like some kind of vacation spot when it's like, dude, you're just trying to get your work done and have some peace and quiet. You're not asking a lot out of people. Like, come on, man. So no, you're not being unreasonable, and this honestly makes a lot of sense. My ex broke up with me out of nowhere, only to then have me contacted like a few months later by a government agency saying that she had a kid and that the kid is actually mine. And now my head is reeling over this because I seriously don't know what to do and I don't know what to make of this situation. Here's what happened. Okay, so about 10 months ago, my girlfriend completely blindsided me. In fact, she ended our relationship via text messaging. To make it even worse, she came to my house while I was like 400 kilometers away, and she took things without my knowledge or permission. And when she left, she explicitly told me to never contact her again. And because she set that boundary, I respected it. The relationship ended over allegations of infidelity on my part, but here's the thing, I was never unfaithful, and I felt as though she was like slightly deflecting everything on me. And for reference, both of us tested positive for something pretty nasty, if you know what I mean. Well, needless to say, I didn't reach out. I didn't even chase her, and I spent the last several months just trying to process the breakup and heal. It's been incredibly hard, and honestly, I haven't felt emotionally ready to even think about dating anyone else. But then out of nowhere, the situation completely changed. I recently got a call from the government agency that handles like the births, deaths, and marriage registrations in the country, and it turns out she had a baby and put my details down on the official form claiming that I'm the father. I haven't even received like the actual paperwork in the mail yet, but my mind has been spinning. It feels so hypocritical that she demanded no contact, refused to have a mature adult conversation with me about any of this, and then she used a government agency to drop this news on my life. But I've been feeling guilty guilty and wondering if I should have reached out sooner, or if I'm being selfish by staying silent now. But the truth is, I'm just trying to protect my own mental health after how messily things have ended. For now though, I'm planning to keep my distance, respect her original no contact wish, and just wait to see what the formal paperwork actually says before I make any moves. So has anyone ever dealt with an ex cutting you off completely, only to then drop massive news through a third party months later? And also, how do you stop it from taking over your head? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, dude, I would not trust this for a second. This sounds so sketchy. Here's what probably happened. She probably broke up with you out of nowhere all of a sudden over text messaging, because if there was anybody who was being unfaithful in the relationship, it was her. And now after the guy doesn't want to carry her baby, she's like, oh yeah, my ex-boyfriend's actually the father. That's probably what's going on right now, and that really sucks. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be demanding a DNA test. I would be like, oh no, I don't think so. The only thing that's gonna make me even pretend to support this child is you giving me a DNA test saying, yep, this kid is mine. Because I'm not convinced this lady hasn't been cheating on you. And sure, you feel guilty, whatever, but dude, you have got to understand, it does not sound like you're the problem here. It sounds like she's the one that's been sleeping around and now she has to deal with the consequences. And that, in my opinion, is really messed up. And if it is the case where this isn't your child, then this is a problem that is definitely not going to be your problem. An entitled Karen literally kept demanding my seat at the airport, even after I came back from the bathroom and sat back down, as she was literally hanging around and hovering over me in a way that was incredibly annoying. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I were flying back home to the East Coast in the United States. We go through security and we get to our gate, and we sit down on a couple of chairs that were available and together near the counter. I then get up and I go to the bathroom, and I leave my sweater on the chair to make it clear that this is occupied. Well, when I come back, I can immediately tell my husband is annoyed. I ask him what's going on, and he says that this lady in her mid-60s or so has asked him for my seat 3 times, and he kept saying no, as he explained that it's occupied by his wife who's currently in the bathroom. Also, the seats were not handicapped or for elderly, literally these were just regular seats. Now, I thought maybe she thought he was lying and just wanted to keep the 2 chairs for himself, but no, even after I sit down, this lady is still hovering by me, and even going as far as leaning over and trying to sit on the armrest or the back of my chair. It was crazy, because seriously, for one, it was busy, but there were definitely still some seats available. And secondly, although we were close to the counter, we were not that close to the actual boarding area. Come on. After a while, I got annoyed of her leaning over me and crouching by me, and it's here that I pointed out to her that there were other seats available. Well, she and the 2 other men that she was with, who so far are just standing by her while she hovers by my seat, just look at me completely dumbfounded. Eventually, they go stand in line to board and enter the plane first as pre-boarding. Now, my best guess is that she liked the location of the seat a lot and felt entitled to it or something like that, but once they figured out boarding was further away, she just lost interest entirely. It was just bizarre all around. I honestly couldn't understand why she wouldn't just sit somewhere else, because honestly, the way she was acting was incredibly weird. Dude, I don't like people at the airport. I'm just gonna say that up front. Maybe other people are like, oh, I love traveling. I love going to the airport and sitting. No, dude, I hate everything about it. And it's because people act like this. I'm convinced that some people go to the airport ready to ruin everybody else's day. Holy crap, I don't want to hear about your stupid inconveniences or what's going on in your life. And I certainly don't want you hovering over, putting your butt near my armrest. Holy crap, get away from me. I know for a fact if I was in that situation, I would tell that lady to buzz off. There's other seats available. Get off of me. So yeah, people suck. And maybe you can relate to this. Leave a comment down below. Have you ever had a weird interaction with someone when you've gone to the airport? And I don't even need to ask that question because I already know the answer is absolutely yes. But either way, leave a comment. I would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for treating my friends exactly the way they've treated me? As I've simply stopped trying because I really feel like they're not trying either. But now they're saying that the friendship has died because of me. And honestly, I don't know what to make of that, and I just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, I gotta be honest, for this one, I finally got tired of being the one carrying this friendship. For what feels like forever, every invitation I made was met with the same recycled excuses. They would say that they're busy, or promise to do it next time, or even just say, oh, I'm exhausted. And I believe them because that's what friends do. I gave them grace, I gave them space, and I kept trying. But then I watched them magically find unlimited time for everybody else. Every weekend, there were pictures with other friends. We're talking dinners, parties, road trips, there were game nights, and somehow they had endless energy for literally anybody but me. And finally, at some point, it clicked. They weren't too busy. They just didn't think I was worth making time for. So you know what? I stopped chasing them. I stopped sending the first text message. I stopped making plans. I stopped carrying a friendship that only existed simply because I refused to let it die. And predictably enough, the friendship friendship went completely silent, and now they're acting like I'm the one who changed, as if I'm responsible for the distance, all because like I quit doing 100% of the work. Apparently they expected me to keep auditioning for a role in their life while they contributed absolutely nothing. But I'm sorry, that is just not a friendship. That's having someone around as a backup option whenever it's convenient. So I'm done begging people to care. If a friendship dies the second I stop putting in all the effort, then maybe it was never a real friendship to begin with. So seriously, am I the jerk for like giving them the exact same amount of effort they gave me? Or are they just mad they lost someone who was willing to do all the work while they did absolutely nothing? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, dude, this is kind of how things go sometimes. Like sometimes you have crappy friends who don't put the work in, and then when you pull away, they're like, well, wait a second, what happened to our friendship? And it's like, yeah, obviously you were the problem here, dude. You didn't put any effort in, you didn't want to hang out with me, and that's just life. I mean, I wouldn't get too hung up on that, to be honest. But the fact that your friend's trying to be like, oh yeah, this is your fault. Like, that is crazy. This is not your fault. You clearly put in all the effort, and this guy didn't do anything. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. That friend sucks, and in my opinion, it's probably time to find better friends. Am I the jerk for supposedly stealing a bottle of bourbon from my brother-in-law? Because he's really salty that I got a special bottle of this stuff and he didn't. And he's kind of convinced that I stole it from him, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so in my family, a few of us drink or like collect bourbon, which is mainly me, my brother-in-law, and my dad. And some bottles are extremely rare. They're expensive, they're hard to find. So basically collectors will line up at stores or attend special events hoping to get one. Well, last Thanksgiving, a liquor store near my sister and brother-in-law was holding an event with a large number of rare bourbons. Everyone who arrived at 8 o'clock in the morning received a number, and numbers were randomly called throughout the morning. And when you were called, you could buy one available bottle at MSRP. Now, everyone would eventually be called, but earlier numbers had better choices. My brother-in-law in this situation was especially excited because he has a huge bourbon collection, but has never been able to find a bottle of Pappy, which for reference is kind of like the holy grail of bourbons that all collectors, myself included, would absolutely die to find a bottle of at this price. I was kind of on the fence about going because I also collect bourbon, although my collection is much smaller, but I had not really committed because it was Thanksgiving morning and we had a lot going on. So at the last minute, my brother-in-law had to work Thanksgiving morning, so he asked my sister, who does not care about bourbon at all, to go in his place and hopefully get the thing that he wants. She then asked me to come so that she would not have to attend this whole bourbon circus alone. Since I'd already considered going and I wanted a chance at a cool bottle for my collection, I decided to just go with her. We also invited my dad, but he thought the whole thing sounded weird, so he just stayed home. Now, my sister and I received the numbers 54 and 55. My number was called about 15 people in, and I bought a bottle of this special bourbon that my brother-in-law really wants for about $100. And seriously, it is really special because it's nearly impossible to find near us, and it's usually selling for like $700, if not more. My sister was then called much later after this bourbon was gone, and instead settled for a bottle of something completely different, which the one that she got for reference is good, but it's not nearly as rare or expensive. Now, let me tell you something. I was absolutely thrilled over this. This is literally the bottle of a lifetime I never thought I would ever get. However, when we got home, my brother-in-law immediately said, "That is my bourbon." He believes I went solely as a stand-in, so in his mind, the bourbon should belong to him. He says that I stole the bottle that he would have gotten if he had been there and was able to attend. But I completely disagree. I went because I also drink and I collect bourbon too. And guess what? I wanted a bottle for myself. I never agreed to give him anything I bought. I knew my sister was there specifically for him, but I considered myself an independent participant who was also keeping her company. I could understand his argument if my sister brought like our mom, for example, who by the way does not care for a second about bourbon, and she happened to be like the one to get the bottle he wants. Because yeah, she clearly would have been a stand-in in that moment, but that is absolutely not my situation. So now I'm being called a jerk and I'm just kind of at a loss here. I genuinely did not realize he believed I was attending on his behalf, because in his mind, I scammed him out of like one of the bottles that he has wanted for years. You know, the one that completes his collection. So am I the jerk for keeping this to myself? Because I really don't know what to do. Okay, this is really stupid in my opinion, because no, of course you're not the jerk, dude. This bottle doesn't automatically belong to him. You also collect this stuff. Because you could replace the word bourbon with like, I don't know, Pokemon cards. And sure, this guy was probably like, oh yeah, I really want this one special pack or whatever. And just because you got one because you were in line, doesn't mean you have to hand it over. Like, dude, what are we talking about? The original poster also collects this stuff too. Like, you can't just take it just because you didn't get one. So no, this is obvious. Like, you definitely are not the jerk, and you shouldn't be forced to give this over to anybody under any circumstances. That's incredibly weird in my opinion, and I just don't think it's right. Did I overreact for walking out on a first date after the guy I was on a date with literally called me ugly, saying that dating ugly girls was easier than dating pretty girls because there was less drama? Because right now, I'm honestly blown away by this. And at this point, I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I'm a 26-year-old female, and I went on a date with a friend of my brother, and apparently he had told my brother he wanted to get to know me, and so I gave him permission to share my number, and then we went on a date. Now, I thought it was odd because my brother doesn't have many friends, and I don't really go on that many dates, but I decided to give it a chance because I usually only get asked out by men double my age. Anyways, the date is kind of normal at the beginning. We're talking about music, anime, different memes, etc., and then I asked what he liked about me. He then responded by saying, well, to be honest, nothing much, but prettier girls are just too much drama, so I was trying this thing that I saw online. And when I asked him to clarify, he said that I wasn't normally his type, essentially comparing me to the female lead from Shrek. Now, at this point, I'm a bit shocked, but decided to give a chance to someone who appeared to want a date without superficial reasons. I was a bit on edge, but the date continued normally for a while until he asked me, oh, I bet you're glad for this trend. How does it feel to be on a date with someone so handsome? And I then just laughed thinking that he was joking, but he kept pressing me to answer, so I just got up and I left. So I really need to know, did I overreact for walking out on this date after he basically called me ugly? Because right now I don't know what to do. Yeah, that guy sounds like a loser. Holy crap. He literally said, oh, ugly girls are easier to date. Like, are you kidding me right now? What is wrong with him? If I was on a date with someone and they were like, yeah, I'm only dating you because you're ugly, I would literally walk out too. Like, holy crap, I do not need to be with someone like that. And this guy sounds like he's full of himself in a way that definitely should not be justified. So yeah, you're not the jerk. I think you did the right thing by walking out, because I know for a fact I would do the same thing if I was in your shoes. An entitled Karen moves into my apartment complex and claims to own the whole building. She even threatened to evict anybody who disobeyed her rules. And I am completely shocked with how entitled and absolutely stupid this entitled Karen truly was. Here's what happened. So I live in an apartment complex with 6 units in my building, and a month ago, the unit above mine went up for sale and sold fairly quickly, and the new owner moved in less than a week ago. And this new owner was the entitled Karen mentioned in the title. And let me just tell you, this is literally the worst way anybody I've ever met has ever made a first impression. This morning, I got up and I went to take the garbage out of my house, and I found a note stuck to my door. I honestly thought it was some kind of note where this lady was introducing herself to her neighbors in her building, but boy, could I not have been more wrong. This is what that note had to say.
Dear tenant, I recently bought your building and wish to introduce myself, and I think you will find I'm a fair landlord. However, I do have rules. For one, everyone is to be in their units by 9 p.m. If you're going to be out past that, I suggest you find accommodations elsewhere. Also, no pets allowed. If you have any, they must be relocated before I do an inspection, or I will call the ranger to have them removed. This is your only warning. I will also conduct an inspection once a month, and you will be present to answer any questions or face eviction. And if you don't pay your rent on time, you will also be evicted. If we all follow these rules, I'm sure we'll get along. Much regards.
And at that point, I honestly could not believe what I just read. As a fun fact about my building, we all own our own units. Nobody actually owns the whole building. I won't lie. I got to her second list talking about pets, and I had a slight panic attack because I have cats, and there's no way I was giving them away. Before I remembered that we bought our unit just before Christmas. We rented it from a friend prior, and when she told me she was thinking about selling it, we ended up buying it and didn't even have to move, so it was kind of wonderful. So in some ways, it still feels great renting, but we actually own our unit, thankfully. Now, I'm not great at confronting someone. I tend to shake a lot, but at that moment, I was quite angry. So I went upstairs and I knocked on this entitled Karen's door. You know that gut feeling you have when you know something's off? Well, this time, mine was spot on. That door opened and there stood the entitled Karen. Her hair was blonder than my own, and her nails were long and bright. She didn't look happy to see me there either. I introduced myself and explained that I lived downstairs and that I wanted to talk to her about the note. She started to talk over top of me, explaining that her letter was basic rules and even a child could understand it. And if I didn't like her rules, I could hand in a letter to vacate. And I was honestly just gobsmacked when she said that. And I could not believe that someone could act this entitled about a unit that they didn't even own. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, this lady proved me wrong. I told her that I actually own my unit. She did not buy it or the rest of the building, but only her own unit. And I kindly explained that she could not enforce anything anything on her note. And when I said that, this entitled Karen did not like that at all. She started yelling at me, saying that yes, she had indeed bought the whole building, and that failure to comply with her rules would mean I would be evicted. I was just starting to think maybe I was wrong when another neighbor opened his door. He came out and asked what the issue was about and requested that this entitled Karen stop screaming because he worked at nights and he was trying to sleep. I told him I was trying to explain that she hadn't bought the whole building, and she just started yelling again. My neighbor told her to stop and then said the best thing I've heard all day. He looks at her straight in the eyes and said, "Lady, are you stupid?" And at this point, the entitled Karen's jaw dropped as he explained to her how wrong she was and that he was in fact a part of the HOA committee, which is a governing body that oversees the building, and that she has no right to make rules for everybody else. She gave us dirty looks before slamming the door right in our face. After that incident, I thanked him profusely for taking care of this. He said in the entire time that he has lived there, he hadn't seen someone so entitled. And you know what? I think I believe him. How absolutely disgusting do you have to be, not only to move in and leave a bad first impression, but to honestly think you're going to be able to enforce any kind of rules over other people? You've got to be a special kind of stupid to think you could get away with that. But thankfully, the HOA committee member put this lady in her place. And hopefully this entitled Karen learned her lesson that she can't just boss people around and pretend like she owns the building. An angry, entitled customer starts throwing things at me, and I honestly could not be more stunned. So I work as a cashier at one of those clothing stores that also have some other stuff in it. And one day, a while back, there was a long line of customers, and the computer systems we were using could not have picked a worse time to go bad. I'm talking no credit or debit cards were scanning, receipts wouldn't print, the loyalty program would not look anything up, everything was just going wrong all at once. Now, this store doesn't have a lot of people. They usually only put one cashier up front and call back up only when there's a long line. After a while of waiting and retrying things over and over again, I finally got the computer to work properly and continued checking out customers. By this point, I had called for backup twice and gotten no response. When I get to one customer, she tries to pay with Apple Pay, and then of course I have to tell her that we don't do that. She then has to go back into her car just to get her credit card, and since I'm not trained to not allow that from a customer, I just say yes. All while this is happening, I called for backup 3 more times, and I still got no response. At this point, I'm just standing there, looking at the extremely long line of customers. I figured that discarding the woman's transaction would be wasteful, so I just waited until she got back, or at least until backup would finally show up. At this point, she is taking a very, very long time to grab her card, and all the while, the next customer in line is getting incredibly upset and asks me if we're still waiting for the woman to come back with her card. When I say yes, she gets furious and throws whatever garbage she was trying to purchase at me and leaves the store. Thankfully, we do still have COVID barriers that protected me, but I was still shocked as nothing similar had ever happened to me ever before. Finally, backup and the woman arrive, and we can finally get to clearing out this long line of customers again. One lady did end up telling me that I was doing a good job and that I shouldn't let this get to me and that they better be paying me good to get treated like this. Another man joked with me about how crazy this woman was, and we had a good laugh about it overall. But hopefully that lady never comes back into our store again, because I honestly don't want anyone throwing things at me like that ever again. How terrible of a person do you have to be to start throwing things at a cashier all because you're tired of waiting in line? The level of entitlement there is just absolutely crazy, and it's just not fair for the cashier. The original poster goes on to say that no, they don't get paid that much as it is, but they're okay with it, and that's just the way it is at the moment. And I guess that's the best attitude to have. At least above anything else, you were able to at least have a good laugh about this, because I know if I was in that situation, I would probably be very frustrated and incredibly offended that someone would actually throw something at me while I'm doing my job. But you handled it like a champ, and hopefully that lady never comes back in, because working as a cashier sucks enough as it is, and having a customer come in just to throw things at you when they're frustrated is not going to help anybody out. My best friend has been cheating on his wife for years, and after I found out, I told him to never contact me again. Now, friends or family are trying to convince me to smooth things over, and I honestly don't know what to do. This situation is pretty fresh in my life, and I'm honestly quite angry. My best friend, we'll call him John, that's not his real name, has been friends with me for about 15 years. We became friends in school, and have been like brothers ever since. A few years ago, John got married to his wife, Jane. That's not her real name either. Unfortunately, Jane and I never really got along. Our viewpoints were radically different, and she said and did a lot of of things that I found to be distasteful. She struck me as a huge snob and looked down on a lot of people I consider to be good friends for no reason other than the fact that they were not very rich or didn't get higher education, or they didn't get a respectable degree in her mind. Because of this, I didn't try to get very close to her or become better friends. I treated her cordially. I made small talk when needed, but that was honestly it. Privately, I did not expect the marriage to last. I figured John would come to his senses and get a divorce or something. 2 days ago, Jane turned up at my doorstep crying. She showed me a bunch of text messages as well as screenshots and other material from John's phone, proving pretty conclusively that he cheated on her and has been cheating on her for a very long time, nearly as long as they've been married. I did not expect this, given that I dislike her a lot. She knows I dislike her, our friends and family know I dislike her. I've been rather rude to her on a number of occasions, some of which were deserved, others not so much. The worst part of this is that John was one of my closest buddies, and he sat with me when I got cheated on by my ex. He knows how damaging this is, as well as how hurtful this can be for the other party, and he went ahead and cheated anyways. With text messages in hand, I confronted him and asked if any of this was true. He admitted that it was, which is when I told him to never get back in touch with me ever again. I dropped Jane off at her parents' house and told her to sort this out from her side, and I went home. I called my fiance and explained the whole situation to her. Thankfully, she agrees with me. However, while I was doing this, I learned that John had confessed all of this to several family members and mutual friends, and now they're trying to convince me that such a long friendship is not worth throwing away for someone I dislike. Some of them are even saying things like, I cannot expect other people to live up to my moral standards, which is just driving me nuts. Yes, I cannot expect people to not cheat, but I can very well kick them out of my life if they show such lack of integrity. My mother raised an important point though. We've been close friends for so long that our friend circles and even family friendships are more or less completely mixed. When this gets worse, and it will result in lines being drawn on all sides, and will undoubtedly result in a lot of good friendships between our families imploding. So now I'm wondering if I should smooth things over, or if I am justified by cutting him out of my life. What should I do? I think honestly, your family needs to mind their own business. This guy threw away his marriage just so he could cheat on his wife. And sure, you didn't like his wife, but there are better ways to get out of that relationship than to go behind their back and cheat. If he was so unhappy, then John should have broken up with Jane a long time ago and gotten a divorce. This is not fair for her in the slightest, no matter how much of a snob she truly was. This is absolutely, in my mind, a betrayal of trust, and I don't blame you for cutting him off. And at this point, imagine how awkward it's going to be, even letting this guy back in your life in the slightest. It's never going to be the same ever again. He will never be the best friend you once knew, because he crossed a line that you really can't come back from without some hurt feelings and a lot of tears. And you know what? In my opinion, once a cheater, always a cheater. And this guy made a very serious choice to go behind his wife's back just to cheat on her. And that, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. So I say stick to your values and keep him out of your life, because it sounds like these people don't actually care that this guy cheated, but rather they just want to keep the peace for their own personal benefit. My boyfriend has been spending some quality time with his ex-girlfriend behind my back, and I just now found out, and I honestly don't know what to do. My boyfriend and I got together around 5 months ago. Up to this point in our relationship, we have had no major arguments, and any small disagreements that we have ever had has always been over his ex-girlfriend. When we first started dating, I noticed that they still had pictures of each other up on their social medias, which I did mention to him, but I kinda just let it go, as he said they ended on good terms and were still good friends. But I did notice through the months that he is still in almost daily contact with her, but he insisted that there was nothing going on. A few months ago, I caught her stalking my social media. She was liking my posts and leaving some comments, stuff like that. And honestly, this upsets me. I asked him to please take a step back from her, or at least ask her to stop. He ended up meeting in person, for which he had to drive 3 hours just to tell her that he didn't want to be friends with her after this. He then blocked her online. Recently, we went on a night out together and she was there. I had never met her before. She pulled me to the side and began crying, telling me how badly my boyfriend had treated her, how his brother had assaulted her, and how he had then broken up with her, but continues to sleep with her and lead her on. I didn't have much interest in this conversation, as I got the feeling that she was lying, and she was being quite manipulative, as he seemed like such a sweet guy. She then broke the news to me that absolutely devastated me, and stopped me straight in my tracks. She told me that they had been spending quality time together, if you know what I mean, all the way up until July of this year. For context, context, I started dating my boyfriend back in May, and he told me that they broke up in January. She also offered me a type of medication that would be a Class A medication, and this was all in the middle of the pub that we were at, so I wasn't inclined to take her word for it. During the conversation, she was also making digs at me, saying things like, "You should do your hair nicer or lose a few pounds, so you can look a little bit more like me." He really loved my look. However, I asked my boyfriend about it, and he admitted that it was true, but that I apparently had no right to be upset about it, as he said it was normal to still be spending quality time with an ex for the first part of a new relationship. This is honestly news to me, as we had established that we were exclusive, and he had reassured me and told me straight up that they were done months ago, but they've been doing this since May. And the worst part about it is that he doesn't see how serious of an issue this is for me. He also agreed with what this lady had to say, that it would be nice if I tried to look a little bit nicer. How can I get through to him about this and try and convince him that no, this is not okay? What should I do? I don't think it could possibly be more obvious that you need to dump this guy. This guy is an absolute piece of garbage. He literally cheated on you, and your boyfriend needs to become your ex-boyfriend, like right now. The original poster unfortunately does not see it that way, because they went on to say that he did say sorry and that he still loves her, and that she thought that this was a normal part of a first relationship. And that is just absolute garbage, because that is absolutely not normal behavior. And I bet you that he's still sneaking behind your back just to get with his ex-girlfriend. And this is probably some coordinated effort on their end just to hide this from you. I guarantee you that he's still doing this, and if I was in your shoes, I would have broken this off a long time ago. So have some self-respect for yourself, take a deep breath, and let him know that he is out of your life, because the way he's acting is absolutely not normal, and you should not ever have to put up with that. My in-laws help take care of our child while we're at work, but they are slowly becoming unbearable, and I honestly don't know what to do. My in-laws are amazingly supportive people. They are retired, and my wife and I both work busy jobs, and they have stepped in to care for our child 5 days a week. Our kid is just a little bit over 1 year old. Every morning they drive 30 to 40 minutes to our house, watch our child, do our chores, and sometimes cook dinner for us. Mind you, this is not a permanent solution. We moved here in June and have been on daycare waiting lists, which say they won't have openings until early to late next year. There has been one daycare that had open slots, but that made us immediately skeptical that they were just a poorly run facility. My wife and I were so lucky to have in-laws to help us in the interim, especially while we wait for a suitable spot to open up. But with that being said, my mother-in-law is starting to break us down. She's neurotic, she has obsessive compulsive disorder, and she is a narcissist. She is constantly cleaning, vacuuming every day, and she does our laundry every day as well. I've all but given up on grocery shopping, because every morning they show up with food for the day, and they just fill the fridge. I have been buying lunch every day, because she only cooks exactly enough food for dinner, and there are no leftovers. Meal times are stressful, because by the time my wife and I get home, she already has dinner cooked, and it's been sitting lukewarm on the countertop or in a warm oven for over an hour. We sit, we eat, and 10 minutes later after sitting, my mother-in-law is back up cleaning dishes and clearing the table. In addition, she freaks out every time our daughter coughs, gags, or puts something too big in her mouth. It's distracting to our daughter, who is doing so well and is learning so fast how to eat normal food. I really just want to sit and enjoy my family, but nope, here comes my mother-in-law with a wet, dirty rag asking me to lift my plate up so she can clean under it. Dinner time sucks, but it's all being done for us, so how could we possibly complain? I love to cook and would have loved nothing more than to cook last night for my birthday, but my mother-in-law says that when I cook after work, we eat too late, and then they don't get home in time to watch their favorite television shows. So instead, my birthday meal was dry pork chops, a microwave potato, and a can of green beans. Oh, and she added tomato salad in, despite the fact that I hate tomatoes. Our daughter adores her grandparents. I've given up dressing her in the morning because I've realized that my mother-in-law changes her out of whatever I put on her as soon as I leave. I even stopped buying food for her because they just let it rot in the fridge and insist on feeding her food that they bought. We had to fight my in-laws tooth and nail just to get them to let her nap in the crib and not on top of them every day, because it was making us miserable every night when our daughter refused to sleep in her crib. We finally won that battle 2 weeks ago, and honestly, everything's a battle. She always wants to assert that her way is better, and this is what she did 30 years ago with my wife. I butt heads with my mother-in-law constantly. Every time I get home, she's got a laundry list of things that she cleaned, or that she fixed, or things that I did wrong. She finished picking up the fallen twigs in the front yard because it made the house look bad. She was giddy when my father-in-law figured out our dryer and what was wrong with it. She is constantly micromanaging. Whether it's the food in our fridge or the way we keep our home, she's constantly doing stuff that we just don't appreciate. I don't know where I went wrong. I've been with my wife for 13 years. I used to get along great with her mother. Then I notice a drop in the facade. She doesn't speak to any of her siblings. My wife has cousins she's never met because my mother-in-law doesn't get along with their parents. She's rude to service staff. She was rude to my dad's staff when she went to his business. We as a family have done a lot of grieving over the past year, and her consoling words were nothing more than, "You gotta get over it eventually." To top it all off, she's now starting to express some highly prejudiced ideologies in our house. For context, my wife is an OBGYN physician who provides gender-affirming care, and it's extremely frustrating for her to hear these things coming from this lady. My wife is having a tough time adjusting to a new job here, and I am in the same boat. On top of all of that, she feels like she's being treated like a 14-year-old again, all while in our new home. We are capable of doing laundry or vacuuming or doing yard work or basic repairs. We don't need to hear every night how hard you've worked just to keep up the house due to our apparent shortcomings. We feel like we have no control, and when we get upset, the response is always, "I'm sorry you feel that way." Or she tries to excuse it by saying something like, "This is just the way I am, and there's nothing I can do to change it." In contrast, my father-in-law is an absolute saint who adores his granddaughter and whose eyes are probably going to eventually fall out with how much he rolls them at his wife. He's just super quiet and doesn't get involved. We've decided that it's not worth fighting over and that we just need to grit our teeth and deal with my mother-in-law until we can get into daycare. That said, every week is a test of our patience, and I don't know how long we can keep it up for. I don't know what else to do because this is hardly a solution that isn't going to eventually result in a blowout. We have been heavily debating sending our daughter to a subpar daycare, but we know that this could cause an absolute meltdown. What should I do? The first thought that came to my mind is, why don't you drive your baby to their house in the morning and then pick the kid up after work? The mother-in-law and the father-in-law can still watch the baby, but they won't have to be in your house and up in your business. This could literally solve all of your problems. And you know what? If they get upset over that, then okay, get upset. They are clearly overstepping their boundaries in your house. The mother-in-law is making some really prejudiced remarks that you don't want to hear in your house, and I honestly don't blame you for not wanting to deal with that. So if I was in your shoes, I would absolutely take that step. I would say, hey, we're going to mix it up, and we'll happily bring our child over to your house instead of you coming over here. And then if they ask why, you can just blatantly explain that you need some space and that they're overstepping their boundaries. I know it seems like you have to walk on eggshells, but that's just the mother-in-law acting very entitled, and she's trying to manipulate the situation. So in my opinion, it's time to put your foot down. You don't have to deal with this, and honestly, you'll feel a lot better with those people out of your house. My entitled mother intentionally poops herself because she hates the wedding that she's having to attend as a bridesmaid, and she's upset that the day isn't about her. And I honestly could not be more traumatized and more disgusted by her actions. As a result, she's now banned from every wedding in the family forever. Here's what happened. So this happened when I was in my early 20s. My mother's cousin Mary was getting married, and she wanted me, my entitled mother, my sister, and a couple other female relatives to be a part of the wedding planning process. My entitled mother hated the idea of being a bridesmaid. Whenever we would go do wedding planning stuff, she would complain the entire time. She hated the bridesmaid dresses, the hair and makeup ideas, and had a meltdown over the shoes. My sister, who is very much the carbon copy of my entitled mother, would also throw fits. I didn't really like much of Mary's ideas either, but I went along with it because I wanted to support her. I'm just a bridesmaid. She was mostly wheelchair bound and could only walk for a short amount of time before she got winded and had to sit down. I can't lie, the bridesmaid dresses were pretty ugly. It was a pale army green with short sleeves with a camouflage sash around the waist. They were cut just below the knee, and the shoes were combat boots. Mary's husband, by the name of Kyle, works for the military, so they were going with a military style theme. Our hair had to even be done up in a donut bun on the back of the head, with the hair flat against the scalp, and the makeup had to be minimal. But despite the bridesmaids hating all of this, Mary absolutely loved it, and that is honestly all that should have mattered. But my entitled mother would not let it go. Her aunt had to rein her in on several occasions and remind her that this is Mary's day and not hers. I can't really blame my mother and my sister for hating the dress and the shoes, but they honestly should have just sucked it up like the rest of us. The lack of flowers was an even bigger problem. In Instead of flower arrangements, Mary and Kyle went with black painted jars filled with sticks with a model tank sitting beside it as the centerpiece, as well as dog tags as gifts to send home with the guests. Kyle has a huge collection of models that he put together and painted himself. It was his one hobby that he enjoyed. On the sides of the aisle were fake rifles lining it with pale green paper streamers. It was incredibly ugly, but again, it was Kyle and Mary's day, so what they wanted, they got, even if it didn't look good. The day of the wedding, we were scheduled to get our hair and makeup done at a small salon a few blocks away from the American Legion, where the wedding was taking place. The bun in my hair was so tight, I got to experience a temporary brow lift while also acquiring a terrible headache. I noticed right away that my entitled mother and my sister were nowhere in sight. I called the house trying to get a hold of them, but they didn't answer. It was already close to wedding time, and we were starting to get a little panicky. Mary was looking lovely in her wedding gown, but she too noticed that my entitled mother and my sister were completely missing, and at this point she began to get upset. Finally, at less than 30 minutes until wedding time, they both rolled in, and we all looked at them horrified. My entitled sister was wearing a bright neon pink dress with black high heels, big hair, and bright, loud makeup. And my entitled mother was even more horrifying. She was wearing a pale green dress. It was so pale that in fact it could be mistaken for a wedding dress. And to top it all off, she was completely drunk, clutching a cocktail in her hand and laughing to herself when she saw how upset Mary was. At this point, Mary began to cry, getting really upset. Now, I do not advocate for violence, but this is one instance where I highly considered it. Thankfully though, I didn't need to, because on that particular day, my aunt woke up and chose violence. She grabbed my entitled mother by the arm and forced her into the chair. She told her and my entitled sister that they will both be changing into the dresses that Mary had paid for, and that they will get their hair and makeup done the way that Mary wanted it done. And if they didn't want to do that, she would personally see to it that the two of them would end up being dragged with the cans behind Kyle and Mary's car after the wedding, praying that Kyle and Mary would go on the highway so that they would experience the most painful experience of their lives. The rest of us sat stunned in silence, not wanting to get on this woman's bad side. My entitled sister began to whine, but relented after the threat of being smacked around by my aunt. We barely made it on time as it was, with less than a few minutes out from the time the wedding would start. I walked with my escort down the aisle as the music began to play. My entitled mother was so petulant about the whole thing that she was tugging at her escort's arm and acting belligerent. She was loudly commenting on the decor, calling it hideous, and insulting people as she walked by them. The poor groomsman has my respect for enduring her behavior for the few minutes that he was escorting her down the aisle. My entitled mother stood behind me, and my spoiled sister soon followed. Once all of us were lined up in our respected places, Kyle walked down the aisle dressed in his formal military uniform. He looked so happy up until my entitled mother began to make comments about how stupid he was for marrying a cripple and being stuck with her for the rest of his life. I snuck a look over to my aunt, who was fuming and looked like she wanted to punch my mom in the face. She told her to shut up or else, but my entitled mother's laughter and wily grin soon shifted to a sneer. I whispered back at her, begging her to please cut it out. When Mary was coming down the aisle, her father was pushing her in her wheelchair. My entitled mother began to groan, making a grunting sound as if she was in pain. I looked back at her, and her face was as red as a tomato. I whispered, asking if she was okay, and she didn't say anything. I looked over at my aunt, who was glaring daggers at her and waiting for an excuse to knock her out. Once Mary got to the end of the aisle, her father helped her stand, and Kyle helped to hold her up so the priest could begin. As the priest was talking, I heard the most disgusting sound behind me. It was so loud that the priest lost focus and went silent. It was as if something had exploded, and the smell that followed it began to fill the air. My spoiled sister and the other bridesmaids began shouting. I turned around and looked at my entitled mother, and then looked down to see what was happening. Her legs, as well as the floor surrounding her, was splattered with soupy poop. Mary was so horrified by the situation that she nearly collapsed and had to be helped into her wheelchair. My entitled mother was acting fake though. She was pretending to be embarrassed, overly exaggerating that she actually just pooped herself, and looked around asking for some assistance in cleaning herself up. She even looked at the groomsman who escorted her out and in a sickeningly sweet voice asked if he would volunteer. And I've I've gotta be honest, he looked like he wanted the ceiling to cave in on him. She looked so satisfied with what she did that she was grinning ear to ear to see everyone causing a fuss over her with not a shred of remorse. My aunt was so fed up that she sucker punched my entitled mother square in the jaw, and the two of them got into a brawl. Other guests had to break them up. Eventually, the police were called, and much to her shock and humiliation, my entitled mother was escorted out. She tried to argue, but Kyle told her that he wanted her gone. My entitled mother and my spoiled sister both looked at me as I was going too, but Kyle insisted that I stay. Some of us were vomiting from the smell because it was that bad. I like to think that I have a strong stomach, but this was from another world. We all pitched in to clean up the mess. By the time we were done, Mary and Kyle were nowhere to be found. My aunt found them outside, and Mary was in tears with Kyle holding her. I apologized profusely for my mother's behavior. I offered to pay to have the rug professionally cleaned, as it had been a gift from a late colonel who had been a patron there some years ago. I know a simple steam clean would have gotten the job done, but I wanted to show just how sorry I was for my entitled mother making their day all about herself and ruining such a precious thing. They said it wasn't necessary. Once the smell cleared out, we were able to continue the wedding. The reception was quiet and we all ate in silence. Once I got home that night, my entitled mother was giving me the silent treatment. I found her on the couch drinking whiskey and glaring at the wall. Her bridesmaid's dress and boots were stuffed into the trash, and the dress was shredded like it had been butchered with scissors. My sister called me terrible names and said that I was a traitor because I didn't support our mother. I told her that I can't support someone who would purposefully poop themselves just to take the spotlight off of a bride on her wedding day. Eventually, my aunt spread the news to everyone on that side of the family. Much of our family cut communication with her after that. She would get angry and embarrassed if anyone brought it up. She maintained for years that it was an accident, but anyone who was there and saw what happened knew she did it on purpose, and it was all out of spite, and because she couldn't stand the day not being about her. She was never invited to any weddings in the family after that. Every time someone in the family announced their wedding online, she would whine about not getting an invite, but they would remind her of what she did and that it was the reason why she would not be invited to another wedding. That is, until she can learn how to act like a human being and not like a wild animal seeking attention. I still talk to Mary and Kyle now and again, and they are honestly doing great. Kyle is retired from active duty, and he now serves as a drill sergeant. So overall, despite the terrible circumstances my mother tried to force on them, Kyle and Mary's lives look great, and I honestly could not be happier for them. The amount of times it took me to read through this story is unprecedented. I laughed and cracked up more times than I could possibly describe. This is the funniest story I've ever heard in my life. This lady literally pooped herself on purpose, mind you, just because she didn't like the wedding and just because she didn't like that it wasn't about her. How unhinged and crazy do you have to be to intentionally do that in public? That legitimately blows my mind. But thankfully, this didn't dampen the attitude of Mary and Kyle, and they got married anyways, even if it was probably the most awkward day of their life. I think if anything, nobody will ever forget that, and I don't think they should. This lady's crazy. I would never invite her back to a wedding either. But what would you do if you were in this situation? Leave a comment down below, because I honestly don't know how I would react if an extended family member rage pooped all over themselves simply because they didn't like my wedding. I just found out the girl I married 5 days ago cheated on me a year ago, and I honestly don't know what to do. I honestly need some help because I'm too embarrassed and confused to go to anyone for some advice. Me and my girl had been together for just about 4.5 years, and last year she had a mental breakdown, if you will. She came home and told me that she was stressed out with law school, as well as her work schedule, and that she just can't handle a relationship right now. And when this happened, this absolutely crushed me, and I was messed up pretty badly mentally when this happened. I have a history of depression, especially after I got out of military service, and right when this happened, I was definitely feeling it again. We ended up coming to a compromise and decided that we would take a break so she could figure her own stuff out. However, we just slept in different rooms and just didn't talk for like a week or two. It was miserable. Once we decided that we could continue our relationship, after making healthy conversations about changes that need to be made in our relationship, I was very fearful that she was hooking up with other guys during the break, as she worked at a bar till about 3 in the morning every night, and some nights she just simply wouldn't come home. She had assured me that nothing ever happened, and at the time, I believed her. Fast forward to this past weekend, and 5 days after our wedding, she tried to airdrop me a bunch of our wedding photos, but she actually accidentally sent me a bunch of random photos from her phone instead. And in those random photos, I found a screenshot of messages from one text message. And it was clearly of her giving this one guy her phone number, as well as her flirting with him and Snapchatting with him, which was honestly the worst one out of the bunch. They were talking about kissing the night before, and it was very clearly flirtatious. I immediately confronted her about it, and she told me it happened during our break, and that she is sorry, but she didn't want to tell me because she was scared I would never forgive her, and that I would just hate her because of that. But what she's saying is not true, because the text messages that she sent him were from before our break by about a week. This obviously led to a huge fight when we both got home from work. After all the yelling and tears, I sat there for a couple of hours by myself, trying to figure out what to do. I told her I don't think I have a choice to forgive her. I can't face the embarrassment of having to tell my family less than a week after the wedding to break it off. And my parents always raised me to be forgiving, and that it's the right thing to do. But it's been a couple days since then, and we had a big party that mutual friends were throwing, so we both went together. I had to act like everything was fine and dandy the whole weekend, which I think gave her the idea that everything is cool. But every morning I wake up next to her, and I honestly can't stop thinking about the messages that she sent another man. I now feel as if I can't even kiss her right now, because all I picture is that text with another guy. I'm not sure what to do, and I'm honestly not sure if I'm overreacting, or if I'm just being too nice. I'm just so lost and hopeless, and I feel betrayed. I want to make it work, but I don't know where to start or how to regain the trust that she lost. What should I do? The timing of this is absolutely unfortunate, and all because she sent the wrong photos to the original poster. And it honestly sounds like the original poster's wife manufactured a break of some kind between the two of them just so she can have some kind of loophole for this affair. And that honestly is really toxic if that's the case. I think if you want to try and make this work, you obviously can. It's going to take a lot of hard work on both of your ends, but I think it's possible. But at the end of the day, she hid something from you major, and that in my opinion is just not fair for you. So examining your relationship with your wife of 5 days is probably the best thing you could do right about now, because otherwise silently fuming over this situation and the text message you saw is only going to drive you nuts. And the only solution, in my opinion, is going to be addressing this, one way or the other. My wife resents me for my depression and wants to end our marriage because of it, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. For some background information, I'm suffering from depression from multiple causes. I have lower back issues and I live in frequent pain, and it's sometimes quite incapacitating. This has led to me putting on a fair bit of weight, as I'm not anywhere near as active as I used to be. These past 4 years, I have been a stay-at-home dad, and prior to that, I was on disability support. I can't go back to construction with my injury, and was looking to find an office job with little success. My wife also suffers from depression, but she is handling it a lot better these days. She's just got a new job that doesn't suck, she's bought herself a new motorcycle, and she is studying part-time. We've been married for nearly 8 years and we have a 4-year-old son. Over the past couple of months, I've noticed that my wife was avoiding me and not returning my affection. She would seemingly go out of her way to avoid physical intimacy by either saying she was tired or just flat out ignoring me when I attempt to initiate. I tried talking to her about what was going on, and we tried some things just to see if anything would help. We even tried a date night every week, but she never told me quite what the issue was. A few weeks ago, I broached the subject of her somewhat cold demeanor towards me, and she brushed it off as being tired and stressed out. I try to support her in any way I can. I cook every day, I take care of the house. Our son is a big point of stress for both of us, and he is 4 years old and constantly fighting us on everything, including toilet training. When he gets worked up, he will quite often yell at me to get out or just to leave him alone, and that he only wants mom. As a child of divorce whose father wanted nothing to do with me as a child, this really hits a nerve with me and has sent me spiraling further into depression. But regardless of how dark my thoughts get, I will not leave my wife and son without a husband and a father. Saturday rolls around, and we had a party for a friend of mine that evening at 7 o'clock. Our son was with his grandparents. My wife organized with her boss to go to Sydney and pick up her new bike and bring it back, saying that she would be back shortly after lunchtime. But she didn't get back until 6 o'clock at night. When I asked her what had taken so long, she was very non-committal and cold. I finally asked her, "Are we okay?" As in, is our marriage okay? To which she responded by saying probably not. I told her again how it seemed like she was treating me like a roommate and not a husband. She then apologized and asked if I still wanted to come with her to the party. I told her of course I do, and we went and we had a good time for the most part. We got home afterwards and went to bed. I didn't try and push the conversation further, as she had gotten up at 4 that morning and was completely exhausted. The following morning, I asked her what we were going to do about this, and she finally opened up and told me that she had realized a while ago that she resented me for my depression. She said that she was the only income earner in the house, and it seemed like everything was on her. She said it might be better if we split for a while, and at this point I asked for clarification because it immediately struck me that when we were first together and when she was depressed, I supported her and helped her get through it. She even told me multiple times that she would not be alive if it were not for me. Yet here she is ready to throw the whole marriage away because I'm depressed now. She explained it was because I'm not trying to get better. I'm constantly struggling with my depression, and because it first stemmed from my weight gain and my back issues, which are constantly reinforcing each other, it makes it difficult. I have been trying to lose weight now for quite a while. I'm down about 12 kilograms since Christmas, and it's been a very slow going process and is not helped by my low willpower. I find myself snacking on occasion for the positive chemicals that I get from it. She had been pushing me to see a psychologist and talk about the stuff that's going on with my depression and possibly going on antidepressants. However, I found it almost impossible to open up to my wife about this, which is the person I feel the most comfortable with in the world. And if I can't even talk to her about this, how on earth could I possibly talk to a stranger about it? Looking back at my upbringing and having it beaten into me that men don't have feelings, it makes me hard to take any kind of steps in this direction. I would quite often get the belt as a child just for crying, and that honestly can change a person. Anyways, I told her that I would seek professional help, but she says that it's too little too late, and her feelings for me have changed. She won't lie to me and say that there is hope for the marriage if I get help, but I can't help but feel like she's been lying to me for months, saying that everything was fine. If she had just approached the subject before, it wouldn't have gotten this far out of hand, and we could have tried to fix it. But she said that she was worried about how I would react. I've never so much as raised my voice towards her, and she's apparently scared of me, which I honestly don't deserve in the slightest. She's letting me stay here for now, as we rent from her parents, but is adamant that the marriage is over. I don't know how she can just throw away our relationship like that, but she is unwilling to work on it with me. I've told her that I will do whatever it takes, but she just wants to wash her hands of it and be done. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. The way your wife is acting is incredibly selfish. I mean, you were there for her when she absolutely needed it the most, but now that you're in that similar spot and you feel like all hope is lost, she's basically saying it's time for you to get out and get going. And the fact that she's trying to retroactively blame you for not getting help sooner when you didn't feel like you were in a place to get help is really hypocritical, because I'm sure you had that conversation with her in the past as well. It's honestly just very inappropriate. This also shows that her happiness is way more important than trying to help you with your happiness, and that, in my opinion, is a massive red flag, because it's showing how selfish she truly is. Regardless, I really hope this doesn't tear apart your marriage, because you made the effort to make it work when she was depressed, and hopefully she can return the favor and try and make sure that your son has both of his parents in his life. My entitled mother goes crazy at a Halloween party, demanding money and repayment from my extended family, who hates my mother to begin with. My entitled mother made things so bad that the police had to show up just to get her drunken, screaming self off of their property, and I honestly could not be more embarrassed. Here's what happened. So this happened when my son was 5 years old, and it was Halloween, and this was the year before we moved out. My father's family had been pretty distant from us for a number of years, but they wanted to extend an invitation for us to attend their annual Halloween party as an olive branch. My dad left when I was young and passed away in a car accident a year later. Because he and my mother were still technically married, she got a lot of money from his life insurance, and we lived comfortably before she squandered most of the money on her gambling addiction. Bitter over the breakup, my mother wouldn't let my dad's family have anything to do with us. My siblings were okay with it, but I always missed them. When we got the invite for the Halloween party, I of course was happy to attend with my son. I had only intended for me and my son to attend, but my entitled mother insisted that she and my siblings had to come too. She demanded that we all go as a theme to appear like we are some kind of unified family. She said, "We all have to look alike. I want them all to see just how great we are without them in our lives." So out of a desire to avoid any kind of conflict, we all decided to agree on the Little Mermaid just to shut her up. I went as Ariel, and my son went as King Triton, and my entitled mother went as Ursula, which is honestly pretty fitting. My son chose our costume for us. He had a stuffed Sebastian Sebastian toy, so he brought it with him, and my entitled mother was already on the larger side, and her hair and makeup looked exactly as you would expect as a live-action version of Ursula. I was so uncomfortable in my seashell bra and tail skirt, I felt really exposed overall. But when we got to the party, my relatives greeted us happily. They commented on how much we've grown from the last time they saw us, and couldn't believe I was a mother. They fawned over my son, giving him compliments and fussing over how adorable he was, and he just soaked it all in. He was always a friendly, outgoing kid. He was introducing his Sebastian stuffy to everyone. It was too cute. He was also cute in his green mermaid tail and his giant beard. I was still wearing my coat because I was so uncomfortable in my outfit. I wasn't fat, but I wasn't skinny either, and I had a bit of a belly. My entitled mother was soaking in whatever attention was coming her way, modeling her costume like she was at Paris Fashion Week, and drinking heavily from the liquor table. My siblings stuck by her practically the whole time, while I was escorted by my son to all the family members who wanted to meet him. At some point in the evening, one of my relatives commented on why I was still wearing my coat, so I told them that I really wasn't comfortable taking it off, as I was feeling a bit self-conscious. My entitled mother heard this and told me to take it off. I responded by saying no, and then we eventually got into an argument over it. She eventually grabbed my coat and tried to tear it off of me. The struggle caused the seashell bra to nearly fall off, and I had to run into the bathroom just to adjust it. I was very angry and extremely embarrassed. Because of this, a bunch of my relatives began giving my entitled mother a hard time about it, but she just brushed it off and kept drinking, thinking the whole thing was hilarious. When I came out of the bathroom, I found my entitled mother complaining to my grandparents about how hard her life has been ever since their son had left her with 3 kids, and that the only consolation that she got was the insurance payout. And of course, she conveniently neglected to admit that he left her in the first place because she is certified insane. She then drunkenly demanded more money from them, claiming she deserved it because her kids were nothing more than a bunch of leeches. As a side note, I was working at the time and I paid rent. If anything, my siblings were the leeches, not me. My grandparents reluctantly offered to help with a little bit of money and gave her a check for $2,500. But that wasn't good enough for my entitled mother. As my relatives were still fussing over my son, my entitled mom got jealous and started wailing. She was being overly dramatic, overly exaggerating, pretending like she's crying. She was so hammered from how much she had been drinking that she no longer had a filter and couldn't control the volume of her voice. She began trash talking everyone at the party, and they could clearly hear what she was saying. My grandparents kindly asked her to calm down, and she pointed her finger at them, calling them deadbeats, as well as being selfish. She screamed at them about how their son had left her with a bunch of unwanted children, referring to me and my siblings, and how her life got destroyed because of them, and that the only reason that she bothered coming was in hopes of getting a bunch of money to make up for the years of suffering that she endured as a single mother. Apparently to her, the $2,500 wasn't good enough and she deserved more. She ended up saying, "I need you to pay bills to keep a roof over my head. Don't you even care? Your son surely didn't. He left us. Now he's passed away and I'm stuck." Someone then in the crowd chimed in and said, "Yeah, no wonder. Look at how you behave." And my entitled mother after that was just completely dumbfounded. I was embarrassed and my siblings just sat quietly and said nothing. My relatives began yelling at my mother, calling her all kinds of names, and giving her the treatment that she so rightly deserved. She began crying and wailing about how unfair everyone was being to her. She then threatened to call the police, to which a relative claimed they already had. We were all asked to leave by my grandparents, even me and my son. I felt awful. I even had to play damage control once the police did show up, as my siblings were too busy trying to comfort my stupid mother. As I was driving everyone home, my mom was drunkenly bragging about ruining the party, gleeful in the knowledge that she burned that bridge and that she got money out of it. I tried calling my grandparents many times after that to apologize, but they wouldn't even answer my calls. To this day, they still won't talk to me, and honestly, I can't really blame them. My mother tried to cash the check, but the check was voided by my grandfather through his bank. My dad's sister told me that he called the bank the following morning and refused payment on the check, so it was all voided out. But to be completely honest, she would have just taken it to the casino anyways, so there's no great loss in that regard. Now, I realize that my father leaving looks bad on him, but in truth, I really don't remember. I was very young, and all I had to go on was what my entitled mother told me, and given her nature, she wasn't honest about the situation. My dad's sister did tell me that the two of them cheated on each other multiple times and fought a lot. They got married way too young, straight out of high school. Both were neither mature or stable enough to handle this kind of commitment. My mother made his life unbearable. He was often working, and she was spending money they couldn't afford. Sometimes they didn't even have the money to pay rent, and he would have to beg his parents for it. My aunt told me the day he left, they got into a really big fight that resulted in him receiving a black eye and a broken nose. She wanted the rent money for the bar, and he said no, and she just blew up and began beating on him. He packed his things and he left. He didn't bother trying to call us or come get us. He believed he had no legal leg to stand on, so he gave up without a fight. He passed away in the car accident the following year, and I don't really have any grudges towards my father. I've long past forgiven him for leaving, and I haven't spoken to that side of my family for many years now, and honestly, I'm okay with that. This entitled mother is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, how do you go to a party like that and act like a complete jerk? This is so unbelievably disrespectful, and it just makes your kids look bad. I mean, they were having a good time. The original poster's son was having a fantastic experience. This may have been his one chance to get to know his grandparents, as well as his extended family, but this entitled mother ruined it. But I guess the silver lining here is that the original poster does not live with her anymore. And honestly, after what she did, I don't blame her in the slightest. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk podcast subreddit. Check the links in the description if you'd like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for yelling at my ex when she called me just to tell me that she's in love with another man? So I had gotten myself a girlfriend just before I enlisted in my state's National Guard. We were in a long-distance relationship. However, she was only a 2-hour drive from my town, so I still managed to find time to see her. Things were going pretty well. We were both still in school, but still managed to find time for each other in between classes and my drills. I really liked her. She was honestly the girl of my dreams. She was extremely funny, had a great personality, and was extremely beautiful. But then, what I was most afraid of happened. She told me that another guy that she worked with confessed his feelings to her. I wasn't worried as I had faith that she would decline, but much to my surprise, she didn't. She told me on a video call that she wanted to break up with me because of personal issues, as well as not being ready to have a boyfriend. She told me that if I gave her time, she would come back to me. And you know what? I stupidly believed her. Even though we were broken up, I still talked to her daily, and we still had flirtatious conversations over text message, as well as FaceTime. So in a sense, nothing really changed. However, after about a week of me waiting for her, she texted me back the following message. I'm so sorry, but I found someone else that I truly and deeply love. I probably won't be texting you unless you're like passing away. Again, I'm truly sorry. And after I saw this, I was completely shocked. I was absolutely destroyed for the next week. She had managed to completely destroy my spirit. Over the course of a few weeks, I'd gained 10 pounds and attempted to skip out on my RSP drills, which my staff sergeant would not allow. I was just so heartbroken. During one of my fits of depression, I received a text message from her asking if we could talk, and I said sure, hoping I could rekindle the relationship, but she had other plans. She called me and we started talking about how we met and how she missed the way I made her feel. I asked her what her intentions were with getting back in contact with me, and she told me she doesn't entirely know, as she is still in love with the person that she left me for. And that is when I just about lost it. I just hung up and had a rage fit, but managed to compose myself after a little bit and texted her asking her what her intentions of getting back in contact with me were, but she just kept dodging the question. I asked what the situation between us was, and she started getting confused. I told her that what she did was incredibly selfish. I told her that she completely left me hanging and then had the audacity to come back into my life just to tell me that she was in love with another guy. She gave me this excuse of how she changes fast and falls for people faster than she wants to. She told me that she fell for this guy the moment he confessed to her and lied about needing time just to break up with me and get with the other guy. At this point, I started crying. I then asked her again, what are your intentions of getting back in contact with me? And she said she was sorry and that she was just wondering if we could be friends. At this point, I told her to stop. She ended up calling me a few more times, and after the 5th call, I answered and I completely let into her. I started screaming at her, telling her that I don't care if she wants to be friends, and that I've completely lost interest in anything to do with her, platonically or not. I told her that I was not going to be her free therapist that she could just walk all over, and after I said that, I hung up. She hasn't texted me or called me back since. But it begs the question, am I the jerk for yelling at my ex like this? For the original poster, no, you are not the jerk. Your ex-girlfriend is an absolute psychopath. You want to know why she's messaging you back? Because she's absolutely trying to play games. She's trying to string you along because she probably sees it as amusing. And you do not need that in your life. The best kind of revenge for someone like this is to move on and block her on everything. You don't need this person in your life. She's a garbage human being, and trust me when I say this, you would not want to get back with her ever again either. Can you imagine dealing with someone like that who will drop you at the first glance of somebody else confessing their love for her? I mean, how disloyal and disgusting can you possibly get? So just block this ex on everything and move on. This lady is a complete loser, and you are absolutely not the jerk in this situation. I unknowingly created a family with my next door neighbor and her son, and at this point, I don't know what to do. 3 years ago, a woman by the name of Casey and her son Kenny moved into the apartment next door. They had a few boxes, so I figured I would offer to help them out and get off to a good start. I noticed that Kenny had a PS4, so I told him that I game as well, and he was free to come over and play my systems anytime he wanted, if his mother would allow it. I have a PS5, a Nintendo Switch, and a gaming PC as well that I constantly play on. Since I'm a mechanic, I told Casey if she had car trouble, she could come to me anytime, since I also help out a lot of other people on the floor with their cars as well, to which she happily accepted. I didn't really interact with Kenny or Casey, besides a few greetings for a few weeks initially, but a little more than a month after moving in, Casey knocked on my door and asked if I could check her car because the engine wasn't turning over. It turns out the spark plugs needed to be changed, which was easy enough to do. Casey was very thankful for my help and offered to pay, but I told her it was no problem. She invited me to dinner with her and Kenny, and I was hesitant to accept, but she insisted on it. The next day we had dinner, and it was a good time. I learned a lot about her and talked to Kenny more. He is a good kid who's really into games, science, and his guitar. We even all went over to my place for some Mario Kart. From then on, I got really close to Kenny. I viewed him like a little brother. He came over to play my games almost every day, and I even started teaching him about cars. I've even brought him to my shop to introduce him to the tools that we use. He's a quick study, and he even told Casey he wants to be a mechanic just like me. I told him to aim higher and become an engineer. He's now even looking into engineering programs. I think Casey really appreciates our relationship. She's become a lot more friendly with me as well. I got COVID during lockdown, and out of the kindness of her heart, she brought me groceries, cleaned my apartment, and even took care of me. I was really totally grateful. She even cooks dinner for me every night, and we all have dinner together. She even makes dinner for me when I work late and leaves it in my apartment. The other day, Kenny brought one of his friends over to his apartment, and that's when Kenny said something that really surprised me. He looked at his friend and said, "Yeah, this guy, he's basically like my dad." And I'm not gonna lie, that took me by utter surprise. I always viewed Kenny as my little brother, but here he is saying that I'm like a dad to him. I asked Casey about this, and she seemed surprised that I even asked. She said that she would never force that role onto me, but that he did view me as a father. He even hoped that me and Casey would get together so that we could be a real family. Casey then said that she wouldn't mind that either. I asked her if she was asking me out, and she just smiled and said yes. I was surprised, but I said okay. We have a dinner date this weekend, and I'm nervous, and I don't want to ruin things with Casey or Kenny. I really do love them both, but I'm not sure how I feel about being the father figure for Kenny. It's a lot of responsibility, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm the guy for it. And Casey, well, she's an amazing woman. I really hope I can measure up to her expectations, so I'm honestly not sure. Should I put some boundaries between me and Kenny? Are these worries unfounded? How do I not screw this up with Casey? I just have so many questions about this situation. What should I do? I mean, I don't think there's much to worry about here. It sounds like you've got a really good thing between you, Casey, and Kenny. In my opinion, I would just roll with it and see where it goes. I think he probably already viewed you as a father figure in his life well before he announced it to his friend. So in my opinion, you're already doing the things that would be required to be a good father in this kid's life. And best of all, you literally found a future stepkid that actually wants you in their life. And that's an awesome thing to have. Like, the hard part is literally over. So all you have to do is just keep on the course and just be a good role model. I mean, you said it yourself. This does take a lot of responsibility to step in like that. And from the sounds of it, you're doing a great job. So if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't count myself out in this situation. I think you have a good future ahead of you, and I really do think that this could be a positive thing in you, Casey, and Kenny's life. My ex is upset with me because I was unsatisfied with our relationship and I chose to move on. And now, after I have a new partner, partner, they suddenly want to get back together, and I'm honestly so done and I don't know what to do. We met when we were 26. We were friends for 2 years and dated for 6 months before becoming official. Then we had a relationship for another 2 years. I shared that I wanted to be married eventually, but didn't want children. In contrast, he did not ever want to be married, but he did want children. We agreed to revisit the topic in the future, but it never really happened. I brought up living together when we had been dating for over a year, and he said he wasn't ready, so I ended up waiting for him until he was ready. And again, he never brought it up again. But when I eventually broke up with him, he claimed that he was trying to hint at it the entire time. I feel like we would never be more than 2 people seeing each other once or twice a week, and this is all probably until the girl who would want to have his children appeared in his life, in which case he would probably kick me to the curb. His brother got engaged, and I felt so inferior to his girlfriend. It ate away at me, yet I didn't want to push my commitment on my avoidant boyfriend. COVID put a huge strain on our relationship as well. We didn't see each other much, and when I turned 30, I decided right then and there that I didn't want to be in a dead-end relationship, and so as a result, I broke up with my now ex-boyfriend. At the time, we agreed to be friends, and I really meant that. I love his company, but didn't think that we were compatible in a relationship. I think of him as one of my closest friends, and that's about it. Fast forward to a little over a year later, and about a few months ago, I got into a relationship with my current partner. It was serious from day one. A month in, we were starting to talk about a future together. He's fine with me being friends with my ex, but of course, after the way my ex has been acting, I absolutely am going to break contact with him. Now, at this point, my ex is mad that I have a new partner. He said that he was hoping that we would get back together, and that I led him on and used him for emotional support. And honestly, I'm really confused, because I feel that I've treated him like my other friends. Because in my mind, that's what we were. We were just friends, nothing more. He had a year to make a move and try and get back together with me if he really thought that was going to be our future. In fact, we already know that we are incompatible long term when it comes to any kind of plans. He didn't want to take our relationship forward when we were dating, so what suddenly changed? Can someone please help me understand what's going on here? And in case you're wondering, no, I'm absolutely not going to remain friends after this, regardless of what happens, because the way he's acting is super inappropriate. But I honestly just want to understand, because I'm at a loss and I'm not sure what to do. Your ex-boyfriend sounds really obnoxious. It sounds like he wanted to keep you around without ever trying to make any kind of commitment in life. And you're the exact opposite. You don't want to waste your time with someone who's not going to give you any kind of security. And that security also includes you getting married. There's also a lack of communication. You said it yourself. If he really wanted to get back together with you, he should have made a move in the year that you two were broken up. I mean, that's not your fault. You moved on with your life. And now he's just throwing a tantrum and he's freaking out. I bet, if anything, that you were just his backup plan when nothing else went through. He clearly couldn't find anybody else who would be willing to put up with his antics. And so he always held on to this false hope that somehow you two would get back together, despite the fact that you were completely incompatible. So in my opinion, it's time to just cut him off and move on. He is clearly too immature to be in a responsible relationship, and having him linger around is only going to be annoying and cause problems. An entitled Karen demands to get free pretzels from our venue at a theme park, stating that her kids are starving and that because we're closed, we should just be giving them out for free. But when I tell her that she has to pay for them, she goes crazy and freaks out on me. Here's what happened. So I work at a pretty big pretzel company, but for privacy reasons, I will call it Uncle Un's. Anyway, I worked there for a year already, and this happened pretty early into my second year. This particular pretzel place was inside a small amusement park in Pennsylvania. And no, it wasn't Hershey Park, and yes, it'll be important later. So it was the last 5 minutes after my shift. So I was tired and I wanted to go home. We were busy cleaning and not paying attention to the window, because normally most families would have left by this point. That is when I hear a knock on our window. So I look up and I do the one thing that I know how to do as a cashier, and I say the line that I always say. And this is where the entitled Karen comes into play. I say, "Hi, how can I help you today?" She responds by saying, "Yeah, hi. Are you closed?" I told her that we actually closed 5 minutes ago. This entitled Karen then said, "Great. Do you have any leftover pretzels?" I told her that we do, but I then asked her why does she want to know that. She then said, "Well, can I have them?" So figuring that she wanted to get some kind of last minute order, I asked her how many she wanted. And when she said she wanted 5 of them, I said, "All right, that comes down to $21.15. So in total, each pretzel's about $4 and some change." And when I told the entitled Karen the price, she just about lost it on me. She said, "What? Aren't they discounted?" I responded by saying that if she has the season pass, pass, then it's 15% off. But apparently this was the wrong thing to say. She says,
No, you're closed, so the pretzels should be half off.
and I have to be honest, at this point I just wanted to go home, and I kinda just stopped caring. I responded to her by saying, why do you think it should be half off? This Karen then explains that because we're closed, that means that the pretzels are a day old and should be discounted, which is completely inaccurate. We switch out our pretzels every 30 minutes, and I tried to explain this to this lady. So she says,
Fine. Babe, do you still want them if they're full priced?
behind her stood a very tired looking husband, and he said that he did not care and he just wanted to hurry up and go home. So then this entitled Karen tries to pull a fast one, and she says,
Okay, whatever. We'll just get it with the 15% off. We can do that, right?
I then reminded her that you need the season pass to get the 15% off, and if you have it, I've got no problem doing that. Again, she freaked out and said,
No, I should get the 15% off because you're closed.
I explained to her that, ma'am, that's not how it works. I stated that yes, we are closed, so we are no longer selling pretzels. I'm only offering them to you because my boss wants as many sold as possible. This entitled Karen then must have thought that she had caught me in my word somehow, because she responded by saying,
See, you can't sell them, so they are free.
So I responded by saying, no, they are not free, ma'am. I will in fact be taking them home and eating them for dinner. At this point, I was too tired to care, as I had just worked a 5-hour shift. I know that's not a lot, but it was 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and I had to deal with kids the entire time. The entitled Karen shot back very angrily by saying,
You don't need them. My kids are hungry.
and when she said that, I said, okay, well maybe you should buy them some food. But the entitled Karen was not getting it. She demanded and insisted that these pretzels were free. So I told her that yes, for me, they were free. But for you, a paying customer, they're $4.23. Thankfully, one of her kids walked up and asked their mom if they could just go home now. The entitled Karen had one last fit of rage and started screaming something that no one but dogs could understand. And then eventually she thankfully left. Imagine getting in a fight over pretzels. How stupid and entitled do you have to be? I mean, this lady clearly was trying to work the system pretty hard. She went from trying to get a 15% discount to then trying to get them half off to then demanding that she should just have them for free. And you can bet that she only did this because they were closing, and she was probably just trying to pressure this worker into caving to her demands. And that's just not fair for someone who's probably just working a summer job trying to make ends meet. So hopefully this entitled Karen can pick her battles a little bit more, because freaking out over pretzels at a theme park definitely seems like a waste of time and energy. I found out that my boyfriend has been cheating on me, and I don't know how to confront him about this or what to do. My boyfriend and I are both 22 years old, and our 3-year anniversary is in about a week. Our relationship has been pretty rocky for most of the duration. I moved away from home to be with him. I have bad anxiety and depression, so it made doing things around the house like chores really difficult a lot of the time, because I was sad about not having my family around. And on top of that, I lost a couple of jobs, my mom got cancer, among other things. I moved right when COVID started, so there was really no chance to make any friends here. I also didn't have any friends in my hometown where I came from. I have felt pretty alone the whole time, and I'm much too clingy for my boyfriend because he's all I know, but he hates it when I'm always right there asking for attention. The fact that I was so clingy caused a lot of issues, as well as me not doing enough around the house because he worked really long shifts. I tried my best, but it never felt like it was ever good enough because there was always something he'd pick out that I didn't do right. Fast forward about a year, and I caught him on Tinder, and I confronted him about it. He said that he was upset that I haven't been doing my part, and that I was too clingy, essentially suffocating him because I just wanted to be around him 24/7. I don't purposefully try and make him mad, but everything I do does. It can be anything I say that I think is normal, but honestly, everything I do upsets him, and it's really simple things too. I also have a really hard time listening, and it affects my memory quite a bit, so most of the time, I can't remember things he just said to me in arguments, or when he says, "What did I just say?" My mind honestly just goes blank, even though I was paying attention. This causes issues on a daily basis, and I've even tried explaining to him that I'm not doing it on purpose, but he just tells me that I don't care, and calls me all these horrible names in all of our arguments. Honestly, I could write a book about our relationship, and I won't cover a lot of it here, but fast forward a little bit where it really goes down. Catching him on Tinder caused major trust issues for me, and honestly made me more clingy because now I was worried about what he was doing and who he was talking to all the time. Whenever he'd go out with his friends, I'd get a little bit upset, and need reassurance, which he also hated. He was always so vague and never really told me his plans anytime he would go out. I always ask him to give me updates now and then, or just to check in with me when he goes out, just so I know he's okay. Whenever I ask him that, he freaks out and calls me controlling and tells me that I'm not his mom and that I don't need to know exactly where he is all the time. So that didn't help either. But fast forward some more, and we got into some pretty big fights when we moved into a new apartment together. At one point, we broke up for about a week because of how I was acting. We got back together after that, and a couple weeks later, I found something in his pants pocket that is basically a packaging wrapper that someone would use for quality time with another woman, if you know what I mean. I then saw a week later where he's asking a lady of the night to spend some quality time with him, also if you know what I mean. And these text messages were pretty condemning and basically all led to the fact that he has been cheating on me. And it looks like he had been doing this multiple times. All of this came up later in an argument, but it didn't really go anywhere because he said he never saw her and denied the entire thing. Fast forward some more, and we got into another really big fight over something I was saying, and he started to get physical, and our roommate had to get between him and me because he was screaming and shaking me. But it wasn't too serious because I was screaming as well. I left after that, and I tried to sleep in my car. But even after that, I accepted him back, and I accepted his apology. We're now in a new place, and we recently got into another argument, and he disappeared for the whole night, and he really wouldn't tell me what he did that night. And what I did next, I know is very wrong, but I looked at his phone, and I only saw text messages of him trying to find out another club that he could go to, where there were lots of women that he could interact with. And there were many more conversations with other women who were just trying to spend some quality time with him. He doesn't know that I saw those messages, and I've been acting like everything is fine at the moment. I've been really depressed lately, and I don't have any friends to talk to, so everything is just kept inside and it really hurts. I'm debating getting the number of this woman that he was chatting with and asking her some questions about my boyfriend, because clearly she might know more than me in this situation. I know I could just break up with him, and I really have been wanting to for the past year or so, but I'm scared. He is all I know, and my family is 5 hours away, and I can't move all my stuff back with my car. I'm just really scared, and I don't have anyone to talk to, and I just don't know. I love him so much, and I want to be with him, and I know he also wants to be with me too, but I just don't know why he has to do stuff like this behind my back. What should I do? The original poster in this situation needs to wake up. Their boyfriend does not love them. If he loved you, he wouldn't go to see some lady of the night over and over again. He also wouldn't have all these other condemning text messages, basically proving that yes, he was cheating on you. And that is exactly what he's doing. He is actively cheating on you. And sure, you might be afraid and you might be scared to do this, but if I was in your shoes, I would be breaking up with him immediately. The man has been physical with you, and he's been actively cheating on you. He does not love you, and this is blatantly not a safe environment for you. Your boyfriend definitely needs to become your ex-boyfriend, because his agenda does not match up with yours, and I honestly do not believe that he loves you in the slightest. My girlfriend kissed another guy 8 months ago, and despite the fact that we weren't together at the time, I still feel cheated, and I honestly don't know what to do. Let me first off say that this woman changed me as a man for the rest of my life, no matter whatever I choose to do ultimately in this situation. I really do deeply trust her as a matter of fact, and I know that everything she said to me is 100% true. We met each other in high school and quickly grew attached to each other. You have to consider the fact that both of us were never in a serious relationship, and the true feeling of love was unknown to us. Soon after meeting, we became mutual friends, and we would text each other on every occasion with no romantic feelings from both sides, even though both of us at the time knew that we both looked like a couple. Times passed and the feelings started coming in gradually. To this day, we often talk about how we felt about each other and at what time during our friendship. I did admit to falling in love with her first though, and not too long after I did, she did as well. You have to know that before that, we never experienced a feeling like this. The one you feel after falling for someone you truly know and appreciate as a person, even though we were both too anxious and overall very confused about what was even happening between the both of us. But here comes the part that really pains me. A month before we became a couple, she organizes a party, which I didn't attend, at which everyone was drunkenly playing a drinking challenge game. It turned out that she was picked to kiss her friend who happened to be a guy. For context, when we were together, he became our frequent topic of discussion because the sight of him at school made me uncomfortable. You would think that it's not a big deal, as we weren't officially in a relationship at the time, but she confessed that she had fallen for me sometime before that already. This is what really hurts the most. Because of this fact, every good memory which I remember from before that stupid party is instead a very, very painful one. We've had some arguments over the whole situation, where she claims that she wasn't taking the whole kissing thing seriously at the time, but after seeing me hurt by it, she came to really regret it and also apologized to me multiple times, not knowing why she even did that, as she never had any feelings for the guy, and I honestly trust her on that. You might not understand, but we were both extremely confused about our status almost all the time before actually getting together. We were already talking about our plans for the future. We are even considered to be a perfect couple by our friend groups. Well, it would be perfect if not for that one stupid kiss. It makes me sick when I even think about it. Before you say it, I consider a breakup to be the last resort. We truly do love each other. On the one hand, I don't even know what I'm really looking for here. I keep saying it to myself, that she has given me way more than a kiss in our relationship. Sometimes though, when thinking about all of this, the stress can get the better of me. And you know what? Maybe I am in the wrong here, but who really knows? All I know is that at this very moment, I can't imagine how much garbage my life would be without her. And at this point, I honestly don't know what to do. So let me get this straight. The original poster is getting upset because their current girlfriend kissed another guy during a drinking game at a party, and this all happened before you were official. And that's what you're upset about? This is literally the most immature take I've ever seen in my life. And I'm sure your girlfriend is scratching her head like, is this guy serious? I mean, this is literally only an issue on your end. She didn't do anything wrong, and she's apologized multiple times. She is surprisingly seeing that, yeah, this is clearly a big deal despite the fact that we weren't together at the time. I think if anything, the original poster needs to hear the cold hard truth that they need to grow up and get over themselves. You were not committed as a couple, and that's honestly all that matters. So there's really no reason to try and rake your girlfriend over the coals because she honestly didn't do anything wrong. My husband left me because I suck at cooking dinner, and I honestly don't know what to do. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I've been married to my husband for 2 years. When we met, I was young, and I didn't know how to do anything. I won't lie, I've always had this horrible dream of being a doting wife, with a loving family, a house, doing all the cleaning, etc. Everything by the books. So I learned how to cook for my husband like I thought I should. I watched video after video, and tried so many things. I can cook phenomenally, at least when it comes to easy Pinterest recipes. My issue is that my husband only likes 2 things. He likes chicken wings and boxed macaroni. He will eat an entire bag of chicken wings and an entire bag of mac and cheese for dinner if I do not cook for him. Of course, I take it on myself to do all the recipe planning, and I ask him first if things sound good or not. I even try new vegetables in unique ways. Fried broccoli, for example, was really good, as well as some baked carrot fries, which are also amazing. The only issue is my husband hates it. He will, without fail, find something to complain about and not eat most of the dinners I make every night. Now, I cook, I clean, I do dishes, I take care of the cat's litter even though I'm allergic, I do laundry, I literally do all of it. I ask for nothing in exchange, except maybe, just maybe, sometimes he eats the dinners that I work so hard to prepare. He could also be a little bit more selective in how he says things. For example, he came to the table and he took a bite of our dinner, which consisted of shrimp fettuccine, Alfredo sauce, garlic bread, and an Italian salad on the side. He starts making noises like ew, to which I don't respond. Then he just loudly says, yuck, what even is this? As if it's not the dinner he specifically asked for and said that he wanted. He just keeps saying that it's off, and I honestly can't figure out how. It really is delicious. I did everything by the book, and I think it tastes great. I ended up telling him that it hurts my feelings when he acts like this, and I'm no longer going to cook any food for him. He is now on his own for meal planning and such. I'll make my own food and spare my feelings, which I know are hurt too easily as it is. After this, he left the house. He slammed the door and he won't text me back. So I'm literally here because I don't want to bother my friends and my family that lives far away. I'm honestly so hurt by this, and I don't know what to do. Your husband is being absolutely ridiculous. You worked hard on making this food, and then he's gonna act like this massive jerk and basically treat you like garbage because it's not what he likes. And I'm sure you did everything correctly. He's just being a very poor sport because he doesn't get to eat chicken and mac and cheese again for the 12th night in a row. This is all just incredibly emotionally immature, and he really should be ashamed of himself. And the fact that he stormed out after you said, okay, I just won't cook for you anymore, is a massive red flag, and it's not something I would ignore in the slightest. Because if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't cook for him anymore either, especially if this is how he's gonna act. If he's just gonna throw whatever you just made under the bus and not even give it a try, then the problem is legitimately with him. So hopefully this works out in some kind of way, and hopefully your husband learns how to cook something besides mac and cheese and chicken, because I can't imagine what that does to your body after every meal, and I can only imagine that's gonna cause problems for him in the future. My partner has a well-paying job, but always finds reasons not to work or pay her bills, and at this point, I'm kind of at a loss on what to do. My partner, who's 27 years old, owes me about $1,000, which I know isn't a huge amount, and honestly, I'd be happy to just forget about it, except every month, it grows a little bit more. She'll be a few hundred behind on rent and bills, and won't ever pay me back fully for it. On top of this, I pay for all groceries for us and her kid. I also spend a lot of money on the herb, if you know what I mean, as we both smoke it daily, but I'm the only one paying for it. More or less, the only major bill that she pays towards is rent, which is about $1,100 a month. We've been together for nearly 2 years, but recently moved into a more expensive home together, which is when all of this started to become a problem. We both have pretty well-paying jobs. That pretty much allows us to be schedule independent. If she were to work 5 days a week, it wouldn't be unusual for her to make $3,000 to $4,000 a month. In fact, this is exactly what her colleagues do. The problem is that she won't work. She just won't. Weeks will go by where she first needs to rest, and then she's just too stressed out, and then she'll be maybe ready to get to work, but something will derail her, and right when I think she's getting back to it, something new comes up, and she's staying home again. I understand that she doesn't enjoy the work she does, and it can be emotionally taxing on her, but usually by the 3rd week of the month, she still won't even have half the rent saved up, and I have to accept that it's up to me to make sure that we can pay it, or we're going to risk eviction. I'm starting to feel taken advantage of. I'm starting to build up some resentment every time I see her deciding to stay home another day, as well as every time I have to liquidate some of my savings or stress about work because she won't do it. I've explained this to her multiple times. I've tried motivating her, buying her energy drinks. She's told me to help her get to work, and we've had a couple of fights and some tension over it. Multiple times we've come up with plans that she can follow that allow for plenty of rest, but still, it's never enough time at work to pay for bills and then just to save some of it. But no matter what we try, at the end of the month, she can't make rent and I have to pay her share because we're both on the lease. I don't want to break up with her. I truly love this girl, and besides her incompatibility with capitalism, she's the healthiest and most loving partner I've ever had. For example, while I may pay for groceries, she does do mostly all the cooking and cleaning. It's not like she's just being lazy all the time. She does have a busy and often stressful life, as well as having a family that uses her like a free therapist. I just want to find a way to motivate her to work enough just so that she can pay her share and be able to afford adventures and travel plans like we've been trying to save money for in the first place. What should I do? This is really disappointing, to be completely honest, because you moved into a new place with her, all with the exception that she would step up and pay her fair share, but she's absolutely not doing that. I don't know if there's some kind of depression or medical illness that's going on with your partner, but maybe it's time to go to the doctor and say, hey, I'm having trouble even going to work. What do I do? Also, where does she work where she could just not show up and still have a job? Because that's crazy to me. The original poster goes on to say that yes, his partner does indeed hate her job, but with that in mind, there's plenty of people out there who hate their job, but still do exactly what they need to do to make rent and make a living. If I was the original poster, I would have put my foot down and said enough is enough. I would stop giving her money, I would stop paying for things, and I would honestly just start looking for a new place to live. Because from the outside looking in, she's taking advantage of you. She knows for a fact that you will step up and save her when she doesn't want to work. And in my opinion, I think it's time to stop being a doormat and just say no, you need to step up and pay your fair share. Otherwise, this living condition is not going to work. An entitled crazy customer freaks out after a cashier accidentally overcharges him by $2. Things got so bad that he threatened to call the police, claiming that they were blatantly robbing him. Things got really tense and very awkward very quickly. Here's what happened. So I worked in a shop for almost 4 years before I finally quit in September of 2022. They basically sold everything. Holiday stuff, home fashion, furniture, food, pet stuff, kitchenware, bathroom supplies, candles, toiletries, you name it. This story happened in 2019, so some of the dialogue may not be completely accurate, so just bear with me. I was working the register that day, and this woman comes up to me with her receipt, saying that something came up wrong, and was kind of rude about it, saying how she came in the other day, and it was supposed to come up at a different price. At the time, registers couldn't do refunds, only customer service did, so I called someone up, and they told me that they had to do customer service, but they'll see what they can do. As we were waiting, my walkie went off, and I hear my coworker's voice come out out from the other end. She said a line that makes you beyond curious upon hearing it. My coworker asked for a manager at register 8. As I hear that, a customer walks past my register towards the door and looked at me and my customer and responds with, "Somebody call the police. We have a jerk right over here," and continued to walk out the door. As soon as that customer said that, all of our attention went towards my coworker. There was an older man beginning to scream at her, and from where I was at, it was a bit hard to hear because of his screaming, but what I did hear absolutely shocked me. He was screaming that they had stolen his money and that he was being robbed and that he was going to call the cops. This guy was screaming so loud that everyone who was either within checkout or at the front of the store radius was paying attention to what was happening with this guy and my coworker. There were several people telling him that he needed to calm down, but he always responded back by screaming, "Shut up, mind your own business." The people around my register were starting to say how we needed to call security or the police. Even the woman who complained about her receipt was saying how this guy was out of control. I honestly agreed with them, but the problem was we didn't have security and we couldn't exactly call the police either. Eventually, 2 of my managers came in, both of them being women, one dealing with my customer and the other one dealing with this crazy old man. At this point, I started taking my next customer, apologizing to her for the wait, and continued on with my business. The guy did walk past my register to get to the customer service, but I avoided eye contact. A little later, when we didn't hear any customers, I did proceed to ask my coworker if she was okay, and she said that she was. She didn't even look fazed by what happened. She told me that this customer was buying stuff, and that included roasting sticks, that at the time was like $1. My coworker said to this guy, "Okay, sir, here is your change," and she ended up giving him a little over $2 in change. And once that entitled crazy customer saw this, he went off by screaming, "I'm not touching that. You overcharged me." He then shows her his receipt to show that she accidentally charged him for 2 roasting sticks. And this was an honest mistake, so the coworker owned up to it and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, sir. Mistakes happen. I apologize." The old man responds by saying, "Well, I don't make mistakes." And this is honestly where things really started to kick off. My coworker then had to tell him that he had to go to customer service just to get his money back. But this entitled customer was not having it because he responded back by saying, "No, I want my $10 back now." My coworker said, "Sorry, sir, I can't do that." She then proceeds to close the register drawer with change still in hand. And that's when everything fell apart for this guy. But the thing is, this crazy guy didn't even spend $10 according to my coworker. He was just really upset over getting overcharged $1. There were no cops involved, just a crazy dude freaking out over $2, who also ended up getting those $2 back. I do have to say that my coworker is a freaking legend because of how well she handled the situation, despite this old man freaking out and claiming that they were robbing him. My guess is that she's dealt with customers like this before, and that's why she was probably so calm and collected. I overheard her say that she was glad it happened to her instead of one of the younger employees. I probably would have cried if this happened to me, since I'm terrible with confrontation and people yelling and screaming at me just does not end well for me. My manager did say later on that she came out from the back of the store and heard the screaming, so that should give you an insight of how loud this guy really was yelling. I'm glad to finally be free of that place, to be completely honest with you. However, after working there for nearly 4 years, that crazy entitled man had to be the worst customer I've ever seen while working there, and I'm so glad that now I work somewhere else. How weird and entitled do you have to be to freak out over $2? I mean, he got his money back in the end, but that's such an overreaction. Accidents really do happen, and there's honestly nothing more cringeworthy in my opinion than watching some weird customer freak out over something so small. Like it's an honest mistake, they didn't do it on purpose. I always try to give anybody in customer service the benefit of the doubt. Chances are they don't even want to work at that job and would much rather be doing literally anything else. But here they are doing it anyways, just trying to make ends meet in their life. So when people act like this, it's just really gross and weird. So good for the original poster for getting a better job, because dealing with people like that on a daily basis can absolutely destroy your spirit. And in my opinion, it's just not worth dealing with. My boyfriend's friends want nothing to do with me, and I'm honestly not sure, as they're not giving me a fair chance, and it all seems so confusing. Okay, some of this isn't going to sound great, but hear me out. I've been with my boyfriend for about 11 months. We met at work, and when we did meet, he was married, and they were having having a lot of problems. He was pretty much checked out of the relationship. We kind of had a flirtatious relationship for a while. Things came to a head and we hooked up on Halloween. The next 2 weeks were honestly the most romantic weeks of my life. I get why people say it's hot because it's forbidden, but it was also emotionally intimate. He told me things he's never shared with anyone, his past, his dreams, etc. He said he didn't know that he could feel this way about someone until he met me. We didn't mean for it to happen. It just sort of did. He left his wife shortly after that and finally started dating me in the open. We went to work together, we hung out together after work, we spent some quality time together, we had dates that were romantic. It was honestly everything. We found out in early May that we were pregnant, and in June he invited me to move in with him. Since we got together, we hang out with my friends all the time. We've only hung out with his friends a few times though. At first I couldn't quite explain it, but the vibe was always off. His friends all have wives or long-term girlfriends, and I think they're the real problem. They don't invite me to hang out with them when their guys get together, even though they all hang out. They don't ask about my pregnancy. One of them is getting married, and my boyfriend is one of the groomsmen. And besides the wedding and rehearsal dinner, I haven't been invited to any of the events. I've tried really hard to make genuine connections with his friends and significant others. We invited them to our gender reveal, and I try to talk to them at our barbecue. I try to plan outings with them, but nothing further comes along other than polite conversations. Then I learned why you should never ask a question you don't want the answer to. I was fed up with the walls that they were putting up, so I got one of the girls that was getting married alone, off to the side, and I asked her up front what the issue was. She told me that she's just being polite when she sees me, and we don't really have anything to talk about. She said she's not interested in new friends, and we have nothing in common, and she doesn't want to hang out with 20-year-olds, as she is significantly older than me. She then said something that really hurt my feelings. She said I'm immature and I'm fake. Basically, I think she thinks that she's better than I am and isn't giving me a fair chance. Also, it's not like I want to be friends with her either, but I at least put in the effort to try and be nice to my boyfriend's friends. I feel totally hurt and alone. Where do I even go from here? I don't want to ask my boyfriend to cut his friends off, but they are determined on not liking me. Am I making too big of a deal out of this? Do I just let it go and deal with it overall? What should I do? This is a tricky situation for a few reasons. Because for one, it seems like the original poster is the reason that this guy divorced his wife. Like you literally hooked up with him while he was still married, and you're the reason why he tore his marriage apart. I think you gotta realize that. Sure, it was already falling apart as it is, but there was always room to try and get it together, and he basically left her to go with you. And that's really sketchy in my opinion. And I think along with that, there's a good chance that his friends know about that. And besides the fact that you're already much younger than they are, they probably are not very happy with you and your boyfriend that he basically left his wife to go with some lady that was like a decade younger than him. I think there's some things going on behind the scenes that you probably don't know about. You can't honestly expect a friend group to accept you after you broke up a marriage, right? I mean, that's just my perspective. Maybe I'm wrong. If I am, please leave a comment and let me know. But that's kind of just what I'm observing from the outside looking in. Also, on top of that, you're pregnant at the age of 20. By the way, the boyfriend in this situation is 29. That is a massive age gap. She is barely not a teenager. You know what I mean? Like, that's just strange. So honestly, I would not get your hopes up about having any kind of friendship with these ladies, or any of his friends in general, because the situation that you have caused in his life, as well as the surrounding people in his life, is really, really bad. And I think you need to wake up and see what the damage really is around you. My entitled ex-mother-in-law gets involved in my life and calls me terrible names all behind her son's back. And now I honestly could not be happier that they are out of my life. So my ex-husband and I ended our marriage amicably. There was no cheating or anything like that. There was just too much stress due to some issues that happened, and we both decided that it was for the best. Now, it seems like in my life, I must be a magnet for insane people. From my mother to an ex-friend, to her mother, to other men who have just been weird. My life is messed up sometimes. Both of us were feeling the strain, and our mental health was taking hits all the time. We argued a lot, even over the pettiest of reasons. Our oldest son was also being affected by it. We had stopped going to couples therapy, and we weren't even spending enough time with each other like we used to. I would often sleep in bed, and he would sleep on the couch in his office. He knew what he was getting into, but he decided after our youngest was born that he couldn't deal with it like he thought. After talking about it and trying to come up with solutions, we chose to end our marriage. It hurt and broke our eldest son's heart, but we agreed to stay friends, and so far it has been working out fine. He's still in our lives, has a room for our kids at his place, and takes our eldest to school every morning and visits a couple days out of the week. He and I have lunch lunch twice a week to talk about the kids. Our divorce court judge must be absolutely loving us. And at the time, this was the best decision that we made. At least that's what I thought. I moved myself and the boys into a 2-bedroom apartment, and I am working full-time as a bartender at a gentleman's club. I love my job. I've only been there a few weeks, and I'm making good money, close to $1,000 a week just in wages and tips. So with alimony and child support, we're sitting pretty. I am trying to lose weight so I can become a dancer at the club. I'm doing the keto diet and going to the gym regularly. I'm shedding the pounds that I want to lose, and I'm already down a dress size. I have always struggled with my weight. I was never overweight, but not exactly skinny. The women in my family always have big hips and big thighs. I'm also using a waist trimmer to help with my figure and posture. I do my hair and makeup, and I go to work looking and feeling like a movie star. I have long dark hair and green eyes. I started getting spray tans when we moved to the city, and I have fallen in love with it. I feel good about myself for the first time in years, and I am an ever-evolving work in progress. I have to brag here that even my ex-husband turns his head whenever I walk into the room and tells me that he kind of regrets not spending time with me. And I have to admit it, I get a little bit of satisfaction out of that. I used to dress super frumpy and didn't bother much beyond a shower and brushing my teeth. I also want to add that I never attended college. My ex-husband is tall with a deep olive complexion, with jet black hair that he keeps slicked back, a full beard that he keeps short, and large golden brown eyes. And he dresses well. He is full-blooded Greek, and his parents immigrated to the US right after they got married. His father found success in real estate, while his mother maintained the family home. They lived in wealthy comfort in a massive house in Connecticut until they moved to my old state. Their home in my old state is just as massive and considered to be a mansion. So needless to say, I was nowhere in my ex-husband's league, but his family welcomed me with open arms. They were the family I always dreamed of having, the opposite of my family in every way. I love them so much and called my in-laws mom and dad. We always got along and talked almost daily. My mother-in-law often sent me receipts of Greek dishes for me to learn how to cook, all because my ex-husband loved it. We often went to a little Greek bistro as a family, and I make it a point to have my eldest son try stuff from his father's side of the family. So you can imagine my surprise when my mother-in-law called me to chastise me about the divorce. She said that if I had been a better wife and lover, Bill would have stayed with me. She said that this was too great of a sin to forgive, and I needed to find God and pray for forgiveness for my wicked ways. I don't know where this was coming from, but she needs to have this talk with her son and not me. She then blew up at me saying that my new job is tempting sin and that it was the devil's playground and my body would be soiled for her son and he wouldn't want to be with a woman like me. I then reminded her that her son and I have been divorced, and she said that I chased him away. She said every picture she received from us since I began bettering myself weren't worth going into her albums because I looked like a lady of the night, as she put it. I got upset and told her it wasn't my looks that were the problem. It was her son's decision, and it was all the stress from the situation. She then said that her son basically didn't want to be with me anymore because the woman that he married was nowhere to be seen, and I was nothing more than a lady of the night. And at this point, I started to cry because I was in such disbelief that my mother-in-law would be so mean to me after she had been so kind to me all of these years. It was legitimately an absolute blindside to me. The club I work at is a gentleman's club, and it caters to the higher elite in my city society. Our prices are not cheap, and while some of it definitely is risque by its nature, there are still standards and protections around the people who work here as well as the people that show up. In fact, my boss is all about safety and doesn't take anybody's garbage anymore, even the customers that think their money is their get-out-of-free jail card, assuming that they can use that status as some way of treating the dancers and staff like garbage. In fact, he has thrown out several people since I've started working there. After this conversation, I hung up on my mother-in-law and I called my ex-husband and asked him to come over. As soon as he walked in, I confronted him about what his mother said. He assured me that it wasn't true and that he didn't know why his mother-in-law said any of those things. I then asked him if he was bitter because of my job and that I had been bettering myself recently. He said no and that he was happy for me. He called his mother and put her on speakerphone and asked her why she would say such cruel things to me. At this point, the mother-in-law got upset and felt ganged up on in the moment. She then admitted that it was a lie, but was only looking out for her son. My ex-husband then sighed and said it wasn't appropriate for her to speak to me like that, and said that he was the one who wanted the divorce, not me. The argument goes on, and eventually his mother starts crying, and at the time it looked like he wanted to apologize for making her cry, but he said that she should apologize to me for being unkind kind and holding my past against me, which was brought up in this argument. But at that point, she went silent and then hung up. Over the next few days, things kind of settled down for the most part. My ex-husband brought me flowers to try and make up for it and also took me out to lunch. Fast forward to last night, and my ex-husband came over to talk to me about my mother-in-law. And to that, I said I didn't want to discuss it anymore. At this point in our lives, I made the decision that I wasn't going to talk to her anymore. And I told him that I wanted to stick with that until I felt ready to contact her again. But he thinks I'm overreacting and being unreasonable. He said that I needed to be more understanding that she is Catholic and that she believes that divorce is a sin. He acknowledges that it is his fault for the divorce though. But he then added on to it, saying that my job is a problem for her and maybe I should consider looking for something else just to make her happy. And at that point, I saw red. I got incredibly upset and I told him to pound sand. My job makes me happy and that is all that matters. I don't care if his mother-in-law has a problem with it. I don't care if he does either. It's my life. He chose to leave, not me. I won't be told what to do anymore. My job provides for me and my kids and keeps a roof over our heads. I reminded him that his alimony and child support, while appreciated, isn't needed and I can manage alone without his help, even with 2 kids. I won't apologize for my job. I also won't apologize for bettering myself and finally finding the self-confidence I didn't know I had. And I won't apologize for his stupid mistakes. I then said to him that I'm not his wife anymore, so he and his mother don't get a say in what I do. I then told him that he needs to get lost. I will never let anyone talk to me like that ever again. No one will walk all over me, not even my ex-husband. This man came into my life and took me and my son into his family. We had a child together, and then things fell apart. Honestly, I don't owe anybody anything, and I will never let anybody put me down or talk down to me like that ever again. The fact that the mother-in-law got involved in that conversation is really gross and disgusting. I mean, what an absolute nightmare. It's good to see that the original poster has found their footing, and they've made the decision that, you know what, I'm not going to be talked down to like this. Good for them for moving forward with their lives, and hopefully things work out for her as well as her kids. My fiance had a very sheltered upbringing, and I feel like I'm often guiding him through basic things in life, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I have to guide my extremely sheltered fiance through life, and sometimes it's just plain exhausting. To preface this, I'm not really looking for validation. I just feel like if I get this out of my system, I'll feel better. I have an amazing fiance. He's kind and funny and handsome and loving. We've been together for 8 years, and we have a healthy and happy relationship. However, his extremely sheltered upbringing has been a source of frustration for me at times. He wasn't allowed to have friends over to his house growing up. He couldn't even go to parties. The family only took 2 trips a year, one to Disneyland and one to the South to visit his family. He never cooked. They didn't go to restaurants. He was raised to fear everything. The whole family are germaphobes, as a matter of fact. The kids couldn't be in a room with the door closed. They didn't fly on airplanes or use public transportation. He wasn't allowed to take highways when driving. They didn't carve pumpkins on Halloween, and they didn't dye Easter eggs. They never went swimming, and the kids don't even know how to swim. And honestly, the list goes on and on. Also, none of these choices came from money issues. They were always fine financially. I feel like because of his upbringing, he missed several pivotal milestones in his life, and I sometimes feel like I'm showing him basic life stuff, and I don't mean to make it sound like it's all bad. In fact, it often creates a lot of really good memories for us. For example, I got to teach him how to make a jack-o'-lantern. I got to see him experience national parks for the first time because I was the one that took him there. His first time cooking for me was adorable. He cooked chicken Alfredo with jarred sauce, and the chicken was just frozen dinosaur nuggets. He tried sushi and Indian food because of me, but other times, explaining basic practices and social conventions almost brings me to tears. Trying to explain to him that if he's invited to a wedding and the invite says +1, it means that he can take me with him and that I want to go. But he doesn't take me, and then he's surprised at the wedding when his friends ask where I am. He didn't know you bring significant others to events in your life. If he cooks dinner, he can't do more than 2 tasks without asking me if it's the right move. Every time we fly, I have to explain to him that it's okay to bring snacks because the no more than 3-ounce rule does not apply to solid foods. And this happens every single time. I can't sit quietly and watch TV without him asking me every 5 minutes if I'm okay because I'm being quiet. For context, the silent treatment was used a lot in his upbringing, so it's a foreign concept to him for someone to be really quiet and not extremely mad. He's uncomfortable being in separate rooms and will follow me around like like a lost dog. If we're watching TV and I get up to get water, he'll get up and just follow me. Another thing that bothers me is that he doesn't clean. He leaves out all sorts of things, from video game controllers to Gundam models to all other projects that he might be working on. He's not advancing his career because he doesn't eat lunch with others or socialize with them, and he skips the social networking events that aren't required because everyone except him knows they are required. The first time I took him to the beach, he didn't know there would be fish in the water, and there are many other situations like this that over time have become extremely exhausting. And I know, I sound a bit whiny, but this stuff obviously doesn't all happen at once. It all just kind of builds up over time, and I didn't realize it until today when I was explaining it to him that married couples typically spend the holidays together and don't separate to spend them at their respective families' houses. This was after I found out he made plans to spend Thanksgiving with his family and told me when it was too late to get my tickets back home. I love our relationship, but I just needed to put this out in the universe because honestly, a lot of this is getting very exhausting. This is really unfortunate because I honestly don't think that your fiance is completely incapable of learning how to do simple tasks. Like, it sounds like he needs some kind of class to learn how to be an adult. Maybe there's something at like a college that you can sign him up for just to teach him basic life skills. This is really unfortunate to deal with, and I'm sure that there's a honeymoon period where you really did enjoy this and it was probably really cute, but I can also see how this would add up pretty quickly and be absolutely obnoxious eventually. But it sounds like you guys love each other and you really are trying to make things work. So hopefully it does work and he's able to step up and be the adult that you know that he certainly can be. My boyfriend is demanding that I cut contact with my brother because he's convinced that I'm sleeping with him, and I honestly could not be more disgusted. Here's what happened. For some context, my brother and I are not blood related. His biological mom was my mom's best friend, but she passed away at childbirth, and my mom decided to adopt my brother. I was 4 months old at the time, so I've only ever known my brother as my brother my entire life. My brother is also gay. He is out of the closet, and he is in a long-term relationship with his high school sweetheart. So I've been dating my boyfriend for 9 months now. When I met my current boyfriend, I was flatmates with my brother and my brother-in-law. Since the beginning of our relationship, my boyfriend expressed that he didn't like the idea that I shared an apartment with 2 men. And when he said this, I was honestly just upset, mostly because I was uncomfortable with his implications. But I tried to reassure him that he has nothing to worry about. I would remind him constantly that one of the men is my brother and the other is my brother-in-law, and both of them are gay. But he still kept saying that he didn't like it, no matter what I said. Among other things, my boyfriend doesn't like that I have weekly movie nights with my brother. My brother and I have had weekly movie nights since I can remember. When my brother-in-law moved in with us, we included him into our movie nights as well. I even offered to my boyfriend to include him in our movie nights too, but lo and behold, he refused and tried to claim that it was weird and that it sounded like we were having some kind of weekly dates with my brother. It only got worse when he found out my brother and I are not related by blood. That day we got into a horrible fight. In that fight, he tried to claim that I have lied to him about my brother being my brother. For the record, I never lied to him. My brother is my brother, and the way he became my brother is absolutely valid. And I also wasn't hiding that we are not blood siblings. It really never crossed my mind to mention it, as it literally has no relevance to me. That day, my boyfriend screamed horrible things to me. He said things about my brother, claiming that we weren't actually siblings in the first place, and that he suspected that we were spending quality time together, if you know what I mean. Yeah, absolutely disgusting. The accusation disgusted me so much that I didn't talk to my boyfriend for a few days. Finally, we eventually made up, and he asked me to move in with him. So I ended up doing just that, even if it was just a bit too soon, because at that point, we had only been dating for about 5 months. My brother and our parents expressed concerns as well, but I didn't want to have another fight. Besides, I felt like if I refused and insisted in continuing to be flatmates with my brother, my boyfriend would then cherry pick this and take this as confirmation that I'm supposedly sleeping with my brother, which again, that's disgusting. Now, ever since I moved in with my boyfriend, it has been drama non-stop. We have had fight after fight every time I try to hang out with my brother. My boyfriend acts as if I'm cheating on him with my brother. And again, that's so disgusting. So last weekend, my brother and his boyfriend moved to a smaller flat, and this is all because I'm no longer living with them, and the other one they were in was too large and the rent was too high for just 2 people. And as a celebration for their new flat, they had a party party. My boyfriend didn't want me to go, but I went anyways. I didn't enjoy the party because I kept being anxious about how my boyfriend will react when I get home. And lo and behold, when I came back, we got into another fight. My boyfriend told me that I either cut contact with my brother or this is the end of our relationship. And I'm honestly just appalled. I'm not cutting contact with my brother, and I'm not open for negotiations on that. So I'm really not sure what to do here. Is there any kind of way to convince my boyfriend that I'm not in some kind of weird relationship with my brother? Or are there other compromises that can be made? Or is this truly the end of our relationship? What should I do? I've got to be honest, the fact that you're even considering that this relationship should continue is baffling to me. The claims that your boyfriend is making about you and your brother are not only disgusting, but they're just disturbing. I mean, how can he honestly come to this conclusion? The writing is on the wall. There is literally nothing going on between the two of you. And the fact that you want to try and make this work is crazy to me. In my opinion, you should get out and get out now. Get rid of this scumbag boyfriend and maybe move back in with your brother. See if there's any kind of space where you can move back in even just for a little bit. This is so disturbing and it's absolutely disgusting. The original poster goes on to say that they feel guilty because they moved into their boyfriend's house, which then caused their brother as well as their boyfriend to move into a smaller apartment. And they feel like this is their fault. To which I say, no, this is the boyfriend's fault. The boyfriend is crazy. You cannot ignore these red flags. This is something that needs to be addressed. And this is not your fault. He is controlling, he's being manipulative, and he's trying to isolate you. So in my opinion, it's time to get out, and it's time to get out now. My boyfriend lied to me saying that he wanted to get married, and now I honestly don't know what to do. My partner is my rock, and I'm his. Literally, he tells me that all the time, including yesterday. We've been together for 5 years and have a truly wonderful relationship. We're always talking, laughing, we're comfortable with one another, we're able to communicate healthily, even when we disagree. After surviving a terrible childhood and struggling with unhealthy romantic relationships in the past, the fact that we love each other in a respectful and secure and profoundly healthy way is truly my biggest blessing, and I wake up every day so happy and grateful for him. He is an incredible man with so much drive, intelligence, kindness, as well as countless gifts to give to the world. About a year and a half ago, it came up for the first time that we saw ourselves getting married one day. It was such a beautiful moment, and it rocked my world to have been vulnerable to say those words in the first place, as well as to have him say it back to me. Since then, it's been something incredibly happy that I get to hold in my heart and look forward to. The subject has come up sporadically since then, but I haven't wanted to push it too far, since we are young and it is very much an eventually thing. Both of our parents are divorced, and his come from money. He got a lot of strong advice growing up not to marry young, as well as to protect his assets, while also being taught that getting married is also a financial decision that you have to be ready for, which is something I never really thought of before. Nevertheless, the thought makes me happy, and we often daydream about the future that we'll build together. We would love to have a little house in New Hampshire, and we hope to buy that as well as some dogs and some chickens. These are conversations he participates in as well, and brings them up all the time. I want to be able to casually talk about the marriage aspect too. I want to have the moment where I go to bed and he says something like, "I can't wait to marry you," or "You're the love of my life." But for some reason recently, whenever the subject has come up, he's clammed up and made it feel very serious. This culminated maybe 2 months ago with a really weird conversation in which I sensed he might not have processed what marriage really means in the way that I had, and that he really wasn't ready to be talking about it in this way. I told him that I would never want him to feel like he's forced into this, and that this is just something that makes me happy to think about, as well as to talk about. I said to him that I love him, and that I would wait as long as he needs, but that I firmly didn't want to bring up the subject again until he was comfortable to discuss it. I wanted to relieve the pressure on him, and I haven't mentioned it since. Well, yesterday we spent a really lovely day getting lunch and hiking with my family. They live far away, so we don't see them very often. My sister and her fiance were there as well, and of course there was a little bit of light conversation about their upcoming wedding. My boyfriend was his usual friendly and easygoing self. I noticed he seemed quiet on the way home and later that evening, so I asked if he was worried about work, but he just said that he was tired from a long day of traveling. I made him a drink, I kissed him on the forehead, just like I always do, and I promised that we could do whatever he wanted to relax that night. I just did what I normally do when I can tell he's stressed out. I tried to show empathy, as well as just to take care of him. But then, as I'm making dinner, he says something that is absolutely devastating to me. He came over to me crying and said spending time with that engaged couple, and even barely talking about their wedding, had sent him into a panic, and he didn't know if he could ever see himself getting married. And at this point, I was completely blindsided. I tried to parse what he was saying, but it was like my brain was stuck. Eventually, he had been locking himself in his office at work all week crying about this. I kept asking him why he would say he wanted to marry me if he didn't, but he basically said that he was lying, that he wanted to give me what he knew I wanted to make me happy. All I could do at that moment was stare at him with an open mouth. I kept trying to pinpoint if he was saying to me that he didn't think he was ready to get married for a long time, or if he just didn't want to get married, period. And I really didn't think he knew himself. I don't think he has put any kind of mature thought into marriage at all. It was like talking to a scared child. He kept saying stuff about not knowing what his career will lead to, or if he'll have the money to support both of us. And when he said that, I just said, we're a partnership. You wanted to be with me yesterday. You want to be with me today. Do you want to be with me tomorrow? At this point, he said yes. And so I said, well, then what else matters? We have a life and we love each other, and we'll take on the future together, whatever it may be. Sitting now in the aftermath, I can say that I'm completely devastated. He left for his mother's house, and I don't know when he'll be home. My body feels ill and I just can't sleep. And it's all because of this conversation. We have always had rock solid confidence that we can trust each other and be vulnerable around each other, as well as just being our full authentic selves, without any hesitation or fear of judgment. We share everything together and we are best friends. He even said that over and over as he sobbed, and told me that he loved me and that he didn't want to get married. Hours ago, I had the most beautiful and solid relationship in the world, and now I don't know if we're going to break up. I'm honestly reeling from all this. I feel like I've been punched in the side over and over again. It feels like the earth has fallen out from underneath me, and I honestly don't know what to do. This is a really unfortunate circumstance, but I think you said it best. You guys have a fantastic relationship. You can talk around each other, you can be your authentic selves, and you can basically say what's on your mind. And that's exactly what your boyfriend did. He said that he's not ready to get married and that he doesn't want to get married. He was honest, emotional, and vulnerable, and he opened up to you. I mean, how much more open can you possibly get than your boyfriend sharing all of this information with you? But I do think you're right. I think your boyfriend has not taken marriage seriously, and he was just kind of going along with whatever you were saying just to make you happy. So hopefully these future discussions go well, because it sounds like you have a good relationship between the two of you. And hopefully one day you both can make that step and have some kind of positive future together. My boyfriend's brother is cheating on his new wife, and I honestly don't know what to do. So as the title suggests, I just found out my boyfriend's brother has been cheating on his new wife for the first time in 8 months of their marriage. We will call my boyfriend's brother Lane and his wife Becky. These are not their real names. I know some of you may be thinking that maybe I should just mind my own business or stay in my lane, but let me explain the whole story before forming an opinion. As some background information, Lane is active duty military and stationed in another state. He came back from an 8-month-long deployment a few days ago. He received orders out of the country prior to his deployment. Him and Becky have been together for 8 years and got married a week before his deployment to ensure that she could go overseas with him. While on his deployment, Becky came back to our home state to visit family and friends. She chose to stay with my boyfriend's family due to unrelated personal issues with her own family. During this time, Becky and I became close for the first time. She opened up to me about issues her and Lane have been having prior to his deployment and while he's been away. Apparently, Lane and Becky did not want to get married, but were pressured by family that it was the smart decision to make and that they could have an actual wedding at a later date. Becky vocalized how this really bothered her due to her religious beliefs around marriage. However, she and Lane came to the decision together that it was the right thing to do. During the deployment, Becky and Lane began to fight more and more, all the way up until the point that he said he wanted to get a divorce. She had told me that he stated that he didn't see her going anywhere in life and felt that all she cared about was working at bars. She had been working at mainly bars recently, but said that this was because of the tips that she made. Becky noticed that Lane blew through $3,000 in a matter of weeks, and he kept saying that it was because he had been out at bars, which is honestly such a terrible double standard. Becky also noticed that Lane had been texting this girl on his crew that he claimed to not like her. I told her that it seemed a little fishy to me and suggested that he might be having some kind of affair. Becky then said that this was something that had never crossed her mind because her and Lane had always had an open and honest relationship with little trust issues, if any, which is honestly very true when it comes to the two of them. She believed that it was depression from being away from everyone. After not hearing from Lane for a few weeks, he messaged her stating that he would fix things when he got back. Fast forward to today, and he is back, and they haven't had a chance to sit down and and talk yet. Yesterday, I mentioned to my boyfriend that Lane had added me on TikTok. My boyfriend is incredibly anti-TikTok, and he asked who Lane was following. So I checked, and I noticed that the only girls that he had followed were me and one other girl that Becky had said she had been concerned about. I asked my boyfriend what was up with that, and he just avoided the question. Later, I asked him again about this, saying that I had a feeling his brother had been cheating. Personally, I know the signs all too well. My boyfriend finally confessed that Lane hadn't been going to bars on deployment, but instead, he had been renting hotel rooms to spend some quality time with girls, if you know what I mean. My boyfriend told me that it originally started as an only once in a while kind of thing, but it progressed into a full-blown relationship. The woman that Lane is seeing has already cut things off with her fiancé, and Lane plans on ending things with Becky now that he's back. This news absolutely shocked me, because Lane and Becky had always seemed like the perfect couple, as well as Lane not really coming off as the cheating type. Additionally, my boyfriend told me that about 5 years ago, Becky cheated on Lane, but Lane and Becky had gotten past it, and things seemed to be pretty healthy between the two of them. Lane has also mentioned every once in a while that he wishes he had more dating experience, since Lane and Becky have been together since high school. I've listened to my boyfriend and Lane talk a few times since he's been back, and it doesn't seem like Lane has any intentions of actually leaving Becky. I think he may have realized that the girl on deployment was really living out a fantasy, and Becky is the real deal. However, I think it's wrong to throw this big of a secret to the side and pretend like it didn't happen, especially after I have witnessed the emotional wreck Becky has been in the last few months. She went several days and nights without eating or sleeping, and truly wants to fix things with Lane. I know it's not my relationship and not my place to destroy a marriage. However, Becky has become a great friend and someone I've been able to confide in lately. I know if I was in her shoes, I would want to know. My boyfriend threatened to leave me if I said anything, but my morals are getting to me. What should I do? Before the original poster even begins to approach talking to Becky about this subject matter, they legitimately need to look at their own relationship. Their boyfriend just gave him an ultimatum. If you talk to Becky about my brother having an affair, I'm going to leave you. And that is honestly incredibly worrying to me. The fact that he would say that is absolutely disgusting. This original poster's boyfriend is literally enabling his brother into cheating, and that is absolutely disgusting. And that's a massive red flag they have to be aware of. But even along with that, in my opinion, if I was in Becky's shoes, I would want to know if my spouse was cheating on me. It's bad enough that this marriage was forced upon them and everybody around them pressured them into getting married in the first place, but now Becky is literally kept in the dark, and they don't know the secret plans that Lane is currently participating in, of going behind her back and cheating on her. And most of all, your boyfriend knew about all of this, and he still said nothing. So it's clear that you two have very different morals and values. So I think at this point, it's time to take a good hard look at your relationship, because your boyfriend is threatening to leave you over his brother cheating on your friend. And personally, that's not something I would ever take sitting down. My girlfriend hates my best friend, despite the fact that she's never met them, and I'm afraid of telling her about wanting to visit this friend out of fear that she will retaliate in some way. And at this point, I don't know what to do. My girlfriend by the name of Sarah, that's not her real name, has been with me for 9 years. I've known my best friend Alice for 13 years, but she lives in England while I live in America, so we pretty much never see each other. My friends and I are planning a trip to France and Belgium next year, so I think since I'm already on that side of the pond, I might as well take a couple days at the end of the trip to see Alice. I go on vacations with this group of friends every 3 to 4 years, ever since we graduated high school, and my girlfriend has no interest in joining us, so that has never really been a problem. But here's the problem. I'm scared to tell her of my plans to see Alice because she just automatically hates her and wanted me to cut her out of my life for a long time now. However, this is not a request I've been able to respect because I honestly think it's stupid. My girlfriend and Alice have never met. They've never spoken. They've never even been on the same continent as each other. This has been an issue in the first couple of years in our relationship. For some reason, my girlfriend feels justified to hate a person that she's never met. She told me that she hates her so much that if she ever visited me in the States that she would attack her, which is really disturbing. She used to ask me every day if Alice texted me, and she always asked to read our conversations. In fact, when Alice followed me on Instagram, my girlfriend didn't talk to me for 2 days. And to this day, I still don't know how she knew that Alice had followed me. She watched as I deleted and blocked Alice's number from my phone and Instagram, and that was 6 or 7 years ago. But obviously, my best friend is going to notice that I'm time not responding to her text messages. So she sent me an email which wasn't blocked. We eventually got back to texting regularly because I thought it was absolutely ridiculous to cut her off for no reason. These days, I can say for sure that my girlfriend has calmed down a lot, but when it comes to Alice, it's a little bit different. I have no idea if she knows that Alice and I are still talking to each other, or if she even thinks about her in the first place at all, because we haven't discussed this in over 5 years. This all just comes from a place of jealousy for my girlfriend, despite the fact that Alice is gay and she is not attracted to me. But my girlfriend is so convinced that Alice is in love with me that she just won't accept that as an excuse. I have never had romantic feelings towards Alice, and while my girlfriend says that she believes me, she says that nothing will convince her that Alice doesn't have feelings for me, even though nothing has happened in the 13 years to suggest that this is true. So I guess my question is this: is there a way to bring up the topic of my visit to England gently? Should I even bother to spare her feelings? Or am I just bracing myself for an absolute firestorm? What should I do? It sounds like your girlfriend is incredibly toxic. I mean, your girlfriend is behaving unreasonably, and she's being incredibly stupid. People can have friends, like it's not that big of a deal. And it sounds like Alice is just not interested in you in the way that your girlfriend is assuming. This all genuinely feels like an overreaction, and this just does not sound healthy. So if anything, maybe it's time to have a conversation with your girlfriend and say that you should be allowed to have best friends, especially when those best friends are not attracted to you. Because this is honestly only going to keep coming up, as it does not sound like any kind of discussion is going to convince your girlfriend that this friendship is actually not that bad. My crazy sister is obsessed with my boyfriend and is actively trying to steal him away from me. She even encourages her daughter to start calling him daddy, with the hopes that one day he would be her husband. And at this point, I'm just so freaked out and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'll start by saying that I love my sister very much, even though we have never really been that close. Something that's always caused tension between us is that she can be quite a jealous and insecure person, and is always comparing herself and her life to others, particularly me. She has in the past frequently expressed jealousy over my appearance, as well as my weight, career, friends, travel, etc. The one aspect of our lives that she's always felt superior to me over is our love lives. I have had really bad luck when it comes to love. I had one relationship that was incredibly abusive, and as a result, dating has been quite hard for me, and now I have a difficult time trusting men. I was single for years. Meanwhile, she had been with the same guy for 8 years, and was always talking about how great and stable he was, as well as all the gifts that he would give her and all these other things. In 2017, I met my partner. We instantly connected on a level that I'd never experienced before, and after many months of just being friends and getting closer and closer in the name of platonic friendship, we eventually told each other how we really felt and began dating. I cannot express enough how much I love this man. He makes me feel adored, safe, supported, and appreciated. He's witty and smart and hilarious and incredibly gentle. We moved in together in 2019, and life has been blissful. Also in 2019, my sister fell pregnant. Her partner told her that he was getting ready to propose. However, about 5 months after the birth of my niece, he decided he didn't want to be with my sister anymore and he left. This was very traumatic for my sister, especially since this was around the time of COVID and lockdowns as well as all this stuff were being announced, and all of a sudden she was faced with being a single mom. Thankfully, she lived close to my parents and was able to form a bubble with their household, so she had their support, and when lockdowns eased, my boyfriend and I would help out whenever we could. It's been incredible watching my niece grow up, and it's been lovely watching my boyfriend be so good with her. He has 4 nephews, so he knows how to be a fun uncle, and this is about where the weirdness started happening. It began with my sister making constant comments about how good my boyfriend is with kids. I would agree with her, but then she'd make digs about how much it's a shame that he is with someone who doesn't want to have children, also known as me. She then says that it's such a waste of a good man, stating that he was born to be a dad. Soon enough, she would start sighing about how my boyfriend is perfect and how she needs to find another man just like him. Again, I would agree because in my honest opinion, he really is the perfect package, and I would love for my sister to find someone as great as him. But it soon became evident she doesn't want someone like him. She just wants my boyfriend. She began saying he is the main male figure in her daughter's life, and that he was the closest thing my niece had to a father. When my niece started talking and familiarizing herself with our roles, she would call him uncle, and then all of a sudden she started calling him daddy. I would always gently correct correct her and say, "No, darling, that's your uncle." But one time my sister heard this and she yelled at me for correcting her daughter and said that I need to leave it alone, that it doesn't matter if she calls my boyfriend daddy. This is when I got really uncomfortable and put my foot down and told her that she needed to stop confusing her daughter and stop allowing her to think that my boyfriend is her daddy. I feel like my sister knows that letting my niece call my boyfriend daddy is only going to confuse her, but I also feel like she doesn't care because she just pretends my boyfriend is the daddy. After that fight, things got quite tense between us, and my sister started snapping at me over everything that I did. And this is all the while still mooning over my partner and telling him how amazing he is. A few times my partner had to stick up for me and tell my sister not to speak to me like that in our house, which always bruised her. Things hit a boiling point last weekend. She asked us to babysit my niece for a couple of hours while she gets her hair trimmed. This wasn't ideal, as my boyfriend was doing something that required a lot of concentration, and he needed some quiet time in that morning to do it. Plus, we had an engagement later that afternoon, so I reluctantly agreed, but explained to my sister that we needed to leave at a certain time, so she really had to be back by then. As a side note, my sister is very disrespectful of other people's time and has no regard for other people's lives. It's always all about her. So I took my niece to the park and let my boyfriend have some peace and quiet. We played for a while, then sat and had a coffee and some ice cream for the kid at my local cafe before eventually returning home. I expected my sister to be returning soon too, as she agreed, but as you could probably guess, she was a no-show. Time is ticking. My boyfriend and I really need to get going. I'm ringing my sister and she's still not answering. I'm stressed. Then all of a sudden she turns up, 40 odd minutes late. I'm upset, but I don't even have time to get into it with her, so I just say goodbye to my niece. That's when my sister noticed what she insisted was mold on my niece's shoes. She asked me in a very loud voice if I let her walk in puddles, and I said she may have accidentally stepped in a puddle while at the park, but she wasn't jumping in them intentionally. My sister then started ranting like a lunatic, screaming at me that I was not to let her go in puddles without gumboots, and that because of my thoughtlessness, the shoes are now moldy. I said that's not how mold works. It doesn't grow after 3 hours. It can't be mold. Or if it is mold, it isn't there because of me. Mold simply doesn't grow in 3 hours. But my sister can't be told. She screamed at me, called me thoughtless and an idiot with no common sense or any maternal instincts. I stepped outside during this argument and told her she was acting appalling in front of her daughter. That's when she closed the back door on me and locked it, locking me out of my own house. I banged on the door and demanded that she unlock the door, to which she said, "Not until you calm down and I feel safe for you to be around my daughter." I was so disgusted at her audacity. How dare she lock me out of my own home? I went around to the front door, but she had locked that too. Luckily, I had my phone in my pocket, so I rang my boyfriend and I told him to let me in because she had locked me out of the house. He was upstairs and had no idea any of this happened. When he opened the door for me, I have never seen him look so angry in my life. He was furious, but he kept his cool and calmly but firmly told my sister to get out, that he was sick of her being so disrespectful to me when I bend over backwards trying to help her, and that she is no longer welcome under this roof until she apologized to me. She scoffed and said, "Well, that's never gonna happen," and then she stormed off and left. It's been a few days, and since then, she has been blowing up my boyfriend's phones with text messages, and my boyfriend has shown them all to me. In those messages, she apologizes to him, not to me, saying she's stressed out being a single mom and that she gets no support from her family. The only support she has is him. My boyfriend replied saying that the only time he is around her or my niece is when I'm there too. So her saying that is proof that she does not appreciate or see the amount of support I give her. My sister replied saying it's not the same because I'm not a maternal person and would never be a good mother, so I just don't get it like he does. Then she sent messages after messages, each more insane and inappropriate than the last, saying she wishes he was my niece's father, that he's everything she's ever wanted in a man, that they would make such a good team, that she is more compatible for him than I am, and that it breaks her heart every day she sees him wasting his life with me. There were also text messages where she talked about how great he looks and smells. My boyfriend replied saying, "This is not appropriate or appreciated. I'm not comfortable receiving messages, and I ask that you please not contact me again until you have resolved things with your sister." And after that, he blocked her completely. I'm just at such a loss on where to go from here. I love my niece so much, much, and I want to be in her life. I'm worried about my sister. I can see that she's struggling, and I want to help her. But this situation has become so toxic. Nothing I do is good enough. I'm tired of being screamed at for everything I do wrong, and being told that I don't have good maternal instincts, when others who have seen me with my niece tell me that I'm doing a great job. I may not want to be a mother, but I do want to be an aunt, and it hurts my feelings to have everything I try to do for my sister get dismissed. Then there's my sister's feelings towards my boyfriend, which at this point feels like an obsession. I feel like me and my boyfriend have been disrespected hugely by her. How do we navigate that? I genuinely have no idea what to do, and it hurts my head. What should I do? This is a crazy story, because quite literally, your sister is trying to steal your boyfriend. She even has her kid calling him daddy, and freaked out on you when you tried to correct her. The original poster's sister sounds unbelievably self-centered, and absolutely a little bit unhinged, and I think your boyfriend has it right. It might be time to block her for a little while. The way she's acting is absolutely irrational, and it honestly is such a shame, because you want to be an aunt, and you want to be in your niece's life, which is completely understandable. They deserve to have family around them that they love and care about. But in my opinion, and for the sake of you and your boyfriend's well-being, it's probably best to get some distance away from this lady, because she clearly needs help. When her boyfriend broke up with her, it obviously broke her down, and I don't think there's anything you can do to try and fix that. I'm experiencing some changes and challenges in my relationship with my 40-year-old boyfriend, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. My boyfriend is a 40-year-old male, and I'm a 26-year-old female, and we have been together for a little over 6 months. He has pretty much been my first everything, my first official date, my first real kiss, my first romantic relationship, etc. And in this relationship, I worry that I am overlooking things that I shouldn't for the sake of being fair. For a little bit about myself, I'm a bit shy and I hate confrontation. I like to make people happy and positive. Sometimes it's at the cost of my own happiness, which I am aware of, but it doesn't particularly make me stop. Now, I love my boyfriend. It's been magical to fall in love and to be loved for who I am, despite my many quirks when it comes to social interactions. He makes me very happy in a lot of ways. I have no doubts about his love for me or attraction to me. I get all the physical affection that I could possibly want. We are into the same type of TV shows. We can spend hours with each other and never get tired. I can tell that he wants to build something with me, but we are also very different. I'm a planner through and through, and he is more of a whatever happens, happens type of person. Despite the age difference between the two of us, I am more financially secure than him, and I make more money overall, even though that doesn't really bother me. I personally think that things being aesthetically pleasing is more important to me. When I make a commitment or start a serious project, I follow through. In contrast, he starts a lot of things and doesn't finish them if no one is holding him accountable. And these things low-key scare me a lot. I don't want to end up in a situation where I feel like I always have to be the responsible one, because it has been that way my entire life. I'm supposed to be the good kid of my siblings, as well as the mom of my old friend group. I don't seek out those roles, but someone has to do it. I think I am exiting the honeymoon stage and starting to realize and feel things that I'm not 100% okay with. He has been married twice before. One lasted 4 years and the other one lasted a little over 1. The second marriage was broken off with good reason for sure, but I get scared to ask about the other because it seems like it hurt him a lot and he just doesn't want to talk about it. He also doesn't really do romance either. We only went on really 2 dates before we became official, and he has not planned a date with us since then. He did take me out of town for my birthday, which I appreciated. However, outside of that, any official date we've gone on, I've planned or had to pay for, except for one where I just paid for everything because we had no idea where we were going when we left the house that night. Now, I offer to pay for these things. I wasn't forced, but that does lead me to another point. He drinks and smokes every day. It didn't really bother me until recently on one occurrence when it seemed a little overboard. And then he took a shot at 9 this morning right before we were going to get ready for church, which I emphasized to him that he didn't have to go if he didn't want to. And I honestly think that's what's kind of sent me into a spiral today. My intention is not just to complain about him, because I honestly do love him, and he has a lot of traits that I think would be hard to come by again. I know that he is a good guy overall, but these things are really starting to get to me. I don't want him to change for me, but I also don't know if I see myself spending the rest of my life like this. I was supposed to move in with him soon, but my main emotion towards this situation is anxiety. I worry that I'll fail in this relationship. I worry that I'll hurt him. I worry that I'm already in too deep to let go, and I honestly don't know what to do. I think when it comes to to those special things like having date nights, or at least having him be more responsible in certain aspects of your life, I think you really just need to talk to him and explain exactly how you feel. Yeah, you might be different people. You like to plan a lot and he kind of flies by the seat of his pants, but that doesn't necessarily mean that this is a bad thing. While the age difference does have me a little nervous on your behalf, I think if it is working and you two are happy together, then I guess that's all that really matters. But overall, talking to him and having this kind of discussion would go a really long way in both of you deciding what you want out of this relationship, as well as what makes you really happy. My boyfriend is demanding that I make some huge changes in my life, and I'm honestly not sure what to do. I'm a 20-year-old female, and I have been dating my boyfriend who's 22 years old for just about 2 years. We broke up once early into our relationship due to a big fight as a result of my deteriorating mental health, as well as some family circumstances that he was dealing with at the time. I was in a psych ward for a month and a half following our original breakup from last year, which was between the months of May and June. The admission to the ward was already planned regardless of the breakup. We got back together in August last year, and from my perspective, things have been great for a long time. He is such a good man, and I'm now at a loss of what to do. My boyfriend has changed all of a sudden over the last week or so, but he is now saying I need to change the following things or we can't be together. For one, he's trying to tell me that I need to come off of my medication that I take for my mental health. I have been diagnosed with ADHD as well as autism, so I take a low dose of antipsychotics and stimulants. He has now suddenly decided that he wants me to experience life as it is and not be so dependent on these medications. I don't feel dependent, but I certainly feel more stable than I have in years. He also wants me to quit my job and live with him. He says my schedule is too unpredictable and that he thinks it's stupid that I work when he can just support us. I only work 3 days a week though, and I even asked if a compromise could be made where I could work on the same days that he does. He says I should be at home studying for university while he is going to work. He also wants me to stop using any type of birth control, which is honestly what scares me the most, especially since he doesn't even want kids for a couple more years. Throughout these discussions, he's compared my fear to a junkie being scared before they go sober. I feel like all of this is just way too much, but I love him so much, and he's the only person I've ever met that made me feel so loved and understood. That is, up until now. I just need to know I'm not going crazy for not wanting to do all of this. If it was a gradual plan for the future, I would, but he wants me to do this as soon as possible. I'm seeing my psychiatrist tomorrow, so I will be asking them too, but I need some advice here as well, because I feel so trapped. I don't want to lose him, but I can't lose any more of myself in the process. What should I do? This may be the biggest red flags that I've ever seen in my life. He wants you to stop your medications, which you absolutely should not do. He wants you to quit your job so you can now depend on him, and he wants you to stop using any kind of birth control. All of these 3 things alone is like 3 strikes and you're out, in my opinion. This guy is absolutely toxic and you need to get away from him. For one, you absolutely should not just cold turkey cut off your medications. You absolutely need to talk to your doctor before you make any kind of decision like that, because sometimes those antipsychotics and stimulants can have very negative effects on your livelihood as well as your health if you just cut them off out of your system altogether all of a sudden. That is incredibly dangerous, and your boyfriend's an idiot for even suggesting that. I also think it's a horrible idea to live with this man. He is not a good person. He wants you to quit your job so you then are dependent on him, and this honestly just screams that he's going to financially abuse you. Basically hold it over your head that you have no job and that you're studying for university, which I would be very surprised if that even keeps up under his house. And I don't even think I need to begin to describe how messed up and weird it is that he's asking you to get off of birth control, but I'll let you use your imagination here and just know that this is incredibly weird, and no rational boyfriend would suddenly just be like, you have to do this or else we're gonna break up. He is also presenting all of this as if it's a do or die kind of moment. It's very black or white in his mind, and he's trying to manipulate you. So in my opinion, you need to break up with him and break up with him fast. This guy is trying to hurt you in a lot of different ways. And let's say even hypothetically that you decide to go along with all of this. Not only will your mental health deteriorate from not having a job, as well as not having the medications that are helping you stay stable, but you also probably will have a kid on the way, and then you really will be stuck with this guy. So in my opinion, it's time to get away from this man and get away fast, because he does not love you, and if anything, he's just trying to control you. My girlfriend of 6 years has been emotionally cheating on me for over a year with one of her coworkers, and at this point, I don't know what to do. My girlfriend, who we'll call Sophia, that's that's not her real name, has been with me for 6 years. When we first started talking, we were just cuddle buddies, as we'd like to put it. We would talk all day, every day until about 3 in the morning. We would send memes, selfies, family pictures, pickup lines, and puns to each other all the time. This lasted for about 3 months until we started dating and continued for another year into the relationship. After the first year was over, the honeymoon phase was ended and we started to talk less and less. The flirty comments disappeared and we started to fight more and more as the years went on. We mostly fought about our communication, but with school and work, we found it difficult to manage. This continues on for about 4 years into the relationship. School is now over and we're back home. I managed to find a job and Sophia finds an internship. We try to hang out and talk, but COVID is a thing, so we don't see each other much. And we're both still super busy, so we're still not communicating enough. During Sophia's internship, she gets placed to work under another guy that we'll call Arthur. Again, not their real name. As far as I could tell, work was stressful, and she was struggling with the work. But Arthur helped her out, and she eventually was hired full-time, all because Arthur recommended her. She talks to Arthur every day after work, although I was not aware of this at the time. Meanwhile, we are not talking very much at all. We see each other infrequently and often fight over everything. At this point, my girlfriend is pretty much just ignoring me. Even when I was finally able to make time for her, she just completely shut me out, saying that she hates texting people and that she also hates talking on the phone. All of this as an excuse to just stop talking to me. So all of my attempts to reach out to her failed. In August, we were finally able to resolve our communication issues, and things seemed to be going fairly well compared to her. I had asked her about Arthur on multiple different occasions after asking her about work and her work drama, where she was able to give a ton of details about it, but her only response was that he is good. Fast forward to today, and I had been having suspicions about her and Arthur for a while, so while she was sleeping at my house, I snuck into her phone and looked over their messages together. The messages were almost exact copies of what we were sending each other in the beginning of our relationship. She talks about this guy to all of her friends, saying how they are besties together and how cute he is. They often say how much they appreciate each other and get along extremely well. They also talk on the phone almost every day for hours for the past year. I took out my phone and compared the dates and times, and they were chatting it up all day every day. And this is on the days that I was with her, but she was distant. Or it was on days where I made immense effort to talk to her, but was completely ignored just so she could respond to Arthur. I feel as though she has been emotionally cheating on me this last year, and I'm honestly just heartbroken. What can I do to get past this? Is this relationship over, or am I over-exaggerating? What should I do? From the sounds of it, your girlfriend absolutely has been emotionally cheating on you. She is acting distant with you while acting as her normal self with Arthur. I mean, that's just not fair to you in the slightest. You can hardly even call each other boyfriend and girlfriend anymore. So I think if anything, you definitely need to have a conversation about this. Yes, you did break into her phone and read her text messages, but if anything, it confirmed your worries, basically telling you that yeah, she's been emotionally cheating on you. And I would even go as far as to suspect that she's been doing a lot more than just emotionally cheating on you, if you know what I mean. So I think having a conversation about this and being ready for the worst might be the best thing to do, because this is not something I would let slide so easily. And if you were smart, you would definitely confront her about this. An entitled crazy Karen tries to steal my personal property for her daughter's wedding. Things got so bad that the cops had to be called and review a fake receipt that this crazy Karen had created, all under the guise of getting our stuff for free. Here's what happened. About 10 years ago, I had a metalworking project with 2-inch stainless steel tubing, and when it was done, I had several feet left. So I made a walkway guardrail and some other stuff, including some large garden arches with plant shelves for my wife. My wife took pictures of all of this, as she was very proud of what I had done, and she posted it on social media. Well, because of those photos, a random woman shows up to our house wanting to borrow one for an upcoming wedding. They wanted to use it as a wedding arch. For the record, we don't know who this lady is, and she only saw pictures of it and contacted my wife about them online. And my wife told her that they were too big to move around, but despite being told this lady showed up to our house anyways. First, she said she wanted to borrow it, but I tell her that they are too large for her pickup truck that she brought with her, and being stainless steel, they are quite heavy. It literally took a forklift to put them in place, and they are anchored to the ground. We can't just pick them up and give them away that easily. This entitled Karen then says that she can get someone to pick one up and then wants me to get a forklift to load it in. And at this point, I was just blown away by her entitlement. I said, no, I have to cut it loose from from its anchors, as it was literally never intended to move. I would also have to move large landscaping stone blocks just to get to it. But with all this in consideration, this entitled Karen was not having it. She stated that she just must have this arch, or it will ruin her baby's wedding. Then she wants me to paint it white. But the point of stainless steel is that you don't have to paint it, ever. And it's a pain in the butt to sand, prep, prime, and paint polished stainless steel. And if you wanted to remove the paint afterwards, it's just a nightmare. So I said no, absolutely not. It was at this moment that this entitled Karen had an absolute nuclear meltdown. She started screaming and crying, accusing me of permanently damaging her daughter and ruining her wedding and how it's gonna look. And at this point, my wife chimes in, trying to de-escalate the situation even just a little bit. My wife tells her that she can have one made, but it costs a little bit over $4,000, as well as have it painted somewhere else. But this entitled Karen doesn't want to pay for the arch because she's claiming that we were supposed to lend it to her for free. Eventually, after some back and forth, this entitled Karen finally leaves and goes dark for about 2 weeks. Then, out of nowhere, I get a call from my wife stating that this entitled Karen is in the driveway with other people, as well as a pickup truck that the arch very clearly will not fit into, and the county sheriff in tow. And at this point, I knew things got serious. She's holding a receipt for the arches, both of them, with a sale price of $200, which was obviously home printed with no business name, no business or home address, no signatures, nothing. And she is now expecting this deputy sheriff to enforce a receipt that very clearly was forged. Her family and friends are all arguing aggressively with my wife, with the deputy in between all of it. This entitled Karen is screaming. I eventually told the deputy what went on and that he talked to my wife while I held the entitled crazy Karen off, as well as her family and friends. Thankfully, the deputy heard our cries and eventually kicked them off of our property with the help of some backup. And while I can't tell you how the wedding went, I can tell you that it didn't happen under my wife's arches. I'm not about to move 4,000 stone blocks, as well as tearing up my yard and getting a cutting torch just to cut the arches loose. And all under the crazy delusional assumption that we were going to lend it to this entitled crazy Karen that we had never met in our lives. There are some crazy people in this world. This lady saw these pictures on social media and she was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna use those for my daughter's wedding. Like, that's just not how the world works. And then she basically tried to steal it with a fake receipt, calling the police and everything. The original poster went on to say that this entitled Karen had convinced all of her family and friends that yes, she had indeed bought both of those arches. And so they also got sucked into this weird lie. So hopefully next time something's posted on social media, maybe make sure they can't figure out where you live. Otherwise, another crazy Karen might start knocking on your door and try and steal something that you worked really hard on. I feel like my boyfriend is being emotionally abusive, but I'm honestly not sure and I don't know what to do. I am a 29-year-old female and I've been dating my boyfriend for 4 years. In the beginning, his friends would make a comment about the clothing I was wearing and how I should cover up. He is really easily influenced by what other people say, and so he made comments about that same subject. He made comments about how much makeup I wear, as well as the music that I will listen to. That was a long time ago, and we honestly moved past it, and I wear whatever I want, and I listen to the music that I want to listen to. These past couple months have been extremely rough. I have 2 kids he has practically raised for the past 4 years. Randomly over the last couple months, he has just turned into a very mean person. Everything is an argument with him now. I took some time away to reflect, and he told me that he would see a therapist for his anger, but to this day, he still hasn't done that. We opened up our own company, and I feel like it is going to his head. He randomly left for 2 weeks to go to Ohio for a golfing tournament. He went golfing 3 times this week, just disregarding any responsibilities in the house. He has made comments about my weight, which I am currently working on, and he has asked me not to drink during the weekdays, which I agreed to. But he keeps track of how much is in the bottle and puts a date by it with a permanent marker. I've been asking him for months to put up shelves in my daughter's room, and he finds every excuse in the world not to do it. If he decides to take a day off from work, it's going to be for his friends or golfing, and he tells me that I just have to accept it and that this is just who he is, and that's what makes him happy, with very little regard for me or the kids. I got off work today at 3 o'clock, but he didn't work today, and I asked him yesterday if he could put the tape up in my daughter's room, as we have been planning on painting it for the past 3 weeks, and the paint has just been sitting there. He was at the mall where I was working to get his phone fixed, and he randomly told me that he was going to go go and look at cars. At the time, I didn't want to say much about the painting of the room, as I just knew it wouldn't get done, and I didn't want to start another argument. And these are just a few examples where my boyfriend will do something only if he wants it done. When it came to looking for cars, I offered to go with him, so we left my car at the mall and drove to a few dealerships. The first dealership we went inside and he was talking to the guy, and the guy asked a question and said, "Are you thinking about trading in your Mustang?" I talked and said, "Oh yes, we definitely are." But he looked at me and shut me down, saying that I didn't need to talk, all the while giving me a long hard stare and rubbing my arms. And at that point I was so embarrassed, and I could tell the other guy was embarrassed as well, and I didn't say anything after that. He told me I was the one that embarrassed him by even talking in the first place. He apologized a little bit later, but I just ignored him, and then he blew up on me. And I asked him, "What if I had said something back to you?" To which he said that he would have made me go sit in the car, and that if I didn't listen, he would have dropped me off and drove back. Later, he fully admitted to being rude, but stated that he didn't care. I want to try and chalk it up as him going through some sort of midlife crisis, as he's turning 30 next year, and maybe he doesn't want to have a family right now, and maybe he just wants to be a single person and go golfing and hunting and hang out with his friends all the time, or the money from the company is going to his head or something like that. I quit my job to create this company for him. I stayed at home putting in countless hours, and now that we have the company up and going, he told me I needed to find a second job and basically cut my paychecks into a third of what it used to be. So now I have a job at the mall as well as working for him. After he dropped me off at my car, I just parked at Target and spent a couple hours alone on my phone just so I could breathe. And he called me multiple times and said that me not answering is only making things worse. I am home now and I'm just emotionally exhausted, dealing with us for months and months now. I want to see things from his side, but I just feel like he's turning into a really cocky person who wants someone better looking. He always went for girls who worked at restaurants like Hooters, and honestly, I am not that kind of girl. I'm just average. He used to be such a caring and sweet person, and I'm trying to do everything in my power to give him his freedom so that we can get back to just being happy, but I don't really know what to do at this point. Everything is honestly so confusing, and I'm kind of at a loss. What should I do? I think to spell it out, you are absolutely being emotionally abused. This man is using you and abusing you, and he is basically trying to treat you like a kid. He doesn't let you talk at the dealership. He's cutting your paycheck down. He's shutting you down at the dealership, acting like you don't know how to negotiate anything. He's calling you names and all these other things. All of this honestly adds up to him being incredibly abusive, and you do not need that in your life. So if anything, I don't think it's too late to get out of this relationship, because based on what you're describing, this man is going to rake in all the money for this business that you built up unless you do something about it right now. And it does sound like he's trying to kick you out. So personally, if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't take this for a second. I would take my daughters and I would move on to somebody else, because you know what? This is not something you should have to put up with. And I really think you would be better off with anyone else. I found out that my girlfriend has continued contact with her ex, and I honestly don't know what to do. My girlfriend and I have been together for approximately 3 months now. We started dating rather recently after she broke up with her ex-boyfriend. They were dating for about 8 months. She explained to me that after 8 months, he still did not put any effort into the relationship. He would ignore her for days on end while he partied constantly. She got tired of being strung along and just moved on. After she ended things with him, he suddenly played the victim card, stating if she breaks up with him, he's going to be depressed and he's not going to be able to function, as well as all these other weird excuses. For the first month of our relationship, he continued texting her on a daily basis, asking her to get back together with him and that he is now a changed man and all this other stuff. She denied him and asked me if I can drive her to his apartment so she can collect her belongings, as she was not wanting to go to his place for a while. I waited outside in my vehicle and she returned about 15 minutes later with a small box of stuff. She told me that he looked like a complete zombie, sweating profusely, like he hasn't eaten or slept in 4 days, and gave her a handwritten love letter. Days later, he continued begging her to get back together with him, and that's when we had made a decision about it and told her that I'm not comfortable with that. She asked me what would make me feel comfortable, and I asked her if she can tell him to stop messaging her and block his number, which she did instantly. Fast forward about 2 months now, and 2 weeks ago, I brought him up to her and asked her if he's tried contacting her again, or if he has moved on. She stated he has not attempted to contact her and has no idea if he has moved on, as there has been no communication between them as he was blocked on that same day. Yesterday, we were sitting on the couch watching TV, and I stood up to go to the kitchen. I forgot my phone on the coffee table, which I wanted to use to refer to a recipe, so I turned around to walk back to the living room. She did not hear me, and as I leaned past to grab my phone, I noticed she was texting her ex-boyfriend. I asked to see her phone, which she showed me, and revealed that yes, she had blocked his number 2 months ago, but he was unblocked the next day, and they had been texting behind my back every day since. There has even been one occurrence 2 weeks ago when she told him that she is on her break at work and to bring her a coffee, which he did, and then they hung out during her work break. A large majority of those messages were him begging her to get back together. I was obviously angry and hurt about this, and that she had been lying to me and not respecting the boundary we put in place. I then asked her how she would feel if the roles were reversed, and that I was doing that with my ex-girlfriend, and she stated that she never thought about that once, and that she would be upset as well. She explained to me that the reason she kept the conversation going was that she found out he had to go on stress leave from work for 3 weeks because he couldn't sleep, eat, or function. She stated that she felt guilty that she caused that pain upon him and took it upon herself to try and fix it. She also stated that he made some very scary remarks about his self-care, in which she wanted to make sure that it wouldn't happen, and felt like continuing the contact with him in person and over message was her way of making sure that he didn't hurt himself. I'm having mixed emotions regarding this. I obviously understand her point of view and the explanation as to why the conversation continued, but I do not agree with how she went about doing it. I feel like he played the victim card in order to continue having her in his life. She explained to me that he would pack up his belongings in the blink of an eye and leave to a different city for a week just to go to some party and not even tell her until he is there and just ignore her for the entire week. Or how he would only want to spend time with her for about 2 to 3 hours a week and only send her about 2 to 3 messages during the other 6 days of the week. He clearly functioned perfectly well on his own, and then all of the sudden, the moment she ends things, he suddenly can't function and has to go on stress leave from work. With all things considered, the trust I had in her took a hit, and the fact that she lied to me and continued to lie to me about this really hurts. I'm struggling right now on whether I'm being unreasonable or overthinking this entire situation. What should I do? I think you hit the nail on the head personally. Your girlfriend went behind your back and has continuously texted this ex-boyfriend, and I honestly just would not be happy about this either. You set boundaries and she stepped over them. She straight up lied to you about this, and in my opinion, this is not something I would let slide. So if anything, it's time to have a serious conversation with your girlfriend, because something has to be done here, because it really comes down to the fact that she can either be loyal to the relationship that she currently has, or this relationship is going to fall apart, and it's honestly only going to be her fault. My girlfriend of 4 months lied to me about her relationship with a coworker. She even went as far as to delete her text messages with them. So as a result, I ended the relationship. Here's what happened. Tonight, I was hanging out with my girlfriend at my house after she had just quit her job. As we're hanging out, she receives a FaceTime call from a guy I've never heard of. I asked her who it was, and she told me it was her coworker. I told her to call him back and see what he wanted. When he answered, he told her that he heard that she had quit and was in her city. He said he was bored and wanted to see her. She tried to shut it down, but he told her that she knows that she has a boyfriend. He kept trying, but she shut it down again. Honestly, I was shocked, and I was furious that this coworker that I've never heard of basically called my girlfriend just to try and get with her. I asked her questions about it, and she said she barely had a relationship with him, and she only had his number because he needed it to ask her for the code to open up. She told me they never text each other, and even showed me that there was no text messages. She swore to me on everything that she was telling me the truth, and they never had conversations through text message, only at work. I wanted to believe her, but I have trouble trusting anyone. I asked her to show me the messages on Microsoft Teams at work. In those messages, she was being dry, but when he asked for her number so they could have unmonitored conversations, she willingly gave it to him. She would even go as far as to DoorDash food for him at work. It is clear that they were closer than she made it seem. They were texting each other, and she was deleting the messages to hide them from me. She lied to me about the circumstances of their relationship. Somewhere along those lines, the guy became comfortable enough with her to try and hang out with her at 10 o'clock at night. I don't believe they hung out before outside of work because of how he handled the phone call when she turned him down. Regardless, I ended the relationship. I told her I appreciate her her time with me, but she lied to me and hid something I couldn't handle. She apologized for lying and left my house. Currently though, I'm in pain. This is as close to being cheated on as I've ever been. I truly loved her, and I wanted it to work out, but I don't think I'd ever trust her again, and I definitely couldn't handle finding out that I've been lied to again. So what would you do if you were in my shoes? Because I really did like her, and I really believe I made the best decision for me. I think breaking up with her really was the best choice. She blatantly lied to you about another guy that she was talking to, and the fact that you got this early on in the relationship is massive as well. Can you imagine finding out about this years later after you've completely fallen in love with her? That would have been an absolute nightmare. Too many times coworkers can become a lot more than just coworkers, and I think you saw exactly what was happening and you did what was best for you. So I wouldn't be so heartbroken over this if I were you. You did the right thing and you did exactly what you should have done in this situation. An entitled customer doesn't understand that I don't work the coffee shop and keeps demanding that I make her coffee after I made it once on the fly just to get her to shut up. Here's what happened. So I work at a big brand name hotel chain that gets mostly business travelers. We have a restaurant and coffee bar, no self-serve and nothing continental. The other day, I was trying to manage a crisis, all while providing guests with what they needed. I work the front desk. I look like the front desk. I wear a plaid button-up and a vest. The name on my name tag is also on the wall under manager on duty. It is not a secret that I am working the front desk. So with that in mind, this woman came up to me mid-managing at about 6 in the morning and actually complained that there was nobody at the coffee bar to serve her and this other gentleman some coffee. The coffee bar wasn't open at the time. It was too early and it wouldn't be open for another 20 minutes. Literally, the hours are plastered all over the thing. But okay, whatever. I let her know their hours and that I'm the front desk and that I would be happy to swap hats and grab her some coffee. This is all just me trying to give some good customer service. I asked her what coffee she wanted. I then also got the gentleman's order too. He wants a plain black for himself and a cafe latte for his wife. He was an elderly, very simple looking guy who seemed very confused as to what his wife wanted. So sure, whatever. I make the coffees that they're asking for. And while I'm running through the coffee orders and making small talk with the gentleman about the specifics of these coffee drinks just to make sure that I'm getting it correctly, I spot the woman again over at the front desk looking around. I go over to her and I say, "Ma'am, did you need something from the front desk?" She says,
"Oh, you're that barista. Yes, I need a pen."
And when she said I'm just the barista, I looked at her and I reiterated by saying, "Oh no, I'm front desk actually. But there are pens at the computer station about 3 feet from where she was sitting originally." After I explained all this, she looks at me and says,
"No, you're not. You don't work the front desk."
And she said that like I was making a joke, and then goes to the computer station. Meanwhile, the actual barista is about 2 feet away, wearing an apron with the name of the coffee bar on his shirt. He looked at me like that woman had just spoken in tongues. So I just went back to making the stupid coffee. So I gave the gentleman his coffee. He had been there first after all. And in the middle of talking to him about how he would like to pay for it, considering once again that the coffee bar's not open and he needed to pay me at the front desk, this woman grabs a coffee out of my hand, which coincidentally enough was hers. Not that she knew that at the time. And this was literally in the middle of her asking,
"Is this one mine?"
She had the lid off and was pouring sugar in it before I could even answer the question. I was tempted to say, "No, it's not actually," just to try and make her a little bit uncomfortable, but I decided against it. She said I made it perfectly, and she was so glad she got a real barista to make her coffee for her. Again, for the 17th time, I'm the front desk. I didn't even say anything that time except, "Oh, thank you. I'm so glad you like it." About 20 minutes later, while at the desk actually doing my real job, she comes over and asks me why I'm at the desk, while also requesting I do more tasks for her, or if she needs to wait for the front desk to arrive and then she can ask them. This lady really isn't getting it. I say again, "Ma'am, I'm the front desk actually. I'd be happy to help you." And she looks at me and then her coffee like I put rat poison in it and said,
"Then how did you make me coffee?"
And at this point, I was just beyond myself because I wanted to say, "I made that coffee because I have more than one brain cell, lady." The next day at around the same time, she came up to me and said,
"Oh, you're the barista that made the perfect coffee. Could I ask you to make another?"
And she said this while I was literally at the front desk doing paperwork. But despite how stupid this lady sounded, I still ended up making this lady some coffee. All things considered though, this lady isn't even the dumbest person I've ever had to deal with at this job. And somehow, these customers just seem to only get worse. Talk about not reading context clues. The front desk literally said over and over again, "Hey, I don't make coffee normally. I'm just just trying to do good customer service. You would think that after the 7th time, they would get the hint and finally catch on that this person just works the front desk. But I guess the original poster did such a good job that this stupid lady thought she could come back to her and get another delicious coffee. So who knows? Maybe she has a start to a new career as a coffee shop owner. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk if you haven't already. And also check out Am I the Genius? We love and appreciate them, and I think you're going to like them as well. Thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video.